In a quiet courtroom in Japan, a shocking verdict is delivered. Yuma Chigami, a young man with messy black hair and wide, trembling eyes, hears the words he never expected: a death sentence. But there's a catch. The death penalty was supposedly abolished 5 years ago. The courtroom erupts in confusion. The judge quickly realizes his mistake and apologizes, corrected by his staff. The death penalty is indeed gone, but for Yuma, what comes next might be even worse. The new sentence: life at Twilight Town. Yuma freezes as the name ripples through the gallery. It's a place of no return, a living grave for the worst of the worst. Before he can process the horror, a guard steps forward, needle in hand. No more words, no more appeals, just the cold reality of what he's become. Yuma panics as the syringe plunges into his neck. The guard's voice is devoid of any empathy. Once sentenced to Twilight Town, you're no longer a citizen. You're no longer even human. You're merely an object to be transferred. The drug takes hold instantly. As Yuma collapses onto the floor, the murmurs from the crowd grow louder. They watch him not with pity, but as if they're seeing the end of a human being's existence. Looking down at the unconscious boy, even the officer can't help but feel a chill. To them, being sent to that town is a fate far harsher than any hanging. A white van speeds away, leaving the city behind and heading deep into the mountains. This is the last time Yuma will ever see the world he knew. Memories of a warmer life flicker through his fading consciousness. A romantic dinner, a ring, and the smiling face of a girl named Keed. But those dreams are shattered as the van pulls into the grim, high-walled facility of Twilight Town. Through the haze, a final, desperate command echoes in his mind. Yuma, you have to live. It's the voice of someone he loved, pleading for him to survive the hell he's about to enter. Yuma wakes up in a cold, stone cell, his head throbbing. He feels a strange collar around his neck and looks around in a daze. What is this? Where am I? He sits up and stares through the heavy iron bars. Outside isn't a prison yard, but what looks like a deserted city street. Silence hangs heavy in the air. Suddenly, a screen on the wall flickers to life. A woman named Kano, with a sinister smile and a black lace veil over one eye, greets him. Her cheerful tone is completely at odds with the bars surrounding him. Yuma scrambles toward the screen, demanding answers. But Kano simply smiles, telling him it's time to learn the rules of his new home, Twilight Town. Introducing herself as the manager of this nightmare, Kano's gaze is predatory. To her, Yuma isn't a prisoner. He's a participant in a twisted new reality. Yuma's hand goes back to his neck. He can feel the cold metal of the collar, a device that marks him as a permanent resident of this lawless zone. Kano explains the history. After the death penalty was abolished, prisons overflowed. Sentences became longer, harsher, and eventually the government ran out of space. Their solution was this town. She shows him a map of Twilight Town, an extraterritorial special zone, a place where the laws of Japan simply do not exist. The rules are simple and terrifying. Once you enter, you can never leave. Inside these 50-meter walls, murder and other crimes are perfectly legal. Kano laughs, encouraging him to die and reduce the population on his own. Yuma is horrified. A town where anything goes. But Kano isn't done. Even in a lawless hell, there are a few absolute rules he must follow. Rule 1. Do not damage the walls or facilities. Rule 2. Do not try to leave or remove that collar. If you do, the jagged metal spikes inside will instantly pierce your neck, executing you on the spot. And now, for his starting equipment. Behind him, 4 silver briefcases appear, labeled A through D. He's told to choose one weapon and step outside to face the town. Yuma's heart hammers against his ribs. Weapons? Kumba? He doesn't understand why this is happening. Kano casually mentions that they'd prefer the population to decrease, saving on taxes, after all. Kano's eye glimmers with a sadistic light as she shares her twisted philosophy. Those who have killed should be killed themselves. Yuma can only whisper a truth that means nothing in this lawless place. He's innocent. But innocence won't save him from the nightmare that's just beginning. With a chillingly polite goodbye, the screen cuts to black, and a heavy grinding of metal fills the room. As the cage bars slowly lift, Yuma is left with his first life-or-death decision. He must pick a box, grab a weapon, and step out into the hell that's waiting for him. Trapped behind cold iron bars, Yuma Chigami is a mess of sweat and terror. He can't wrap his head around how he ended up in this nightmare, especially when he knows he's innocent. But he doesn't have time to grieve. He has to make his first move and choose one of the boxes, A, B, or C. Yuma overthinks the choice, recalling how people usually pick the middle option to feel safe. Boxes B and C seem like the easy choices, but in a place like this, he figures the typical logic might be a trap. To keep his peace of mind, he decides to avoid the second-best options. "I'll take the big one," Yuma shouts, grabbing box A. But as soon as he lifts it, his heart sinks. It's incredibly light, almost as if it's empty. He immediately fears he's made a terrible mistake. Clutching the surprisingly light box, Yuma walks away with a heavy heart. He curses his impulsive decision, wishing he had checked the weight of the boxes before committing to one. What kind of weapon could possibly be this light? Despair washes over him again. Why did his life turn out this way? He was sentenced to death for a crime he didn't commit, only to be thrown into Twilight Town. It's a place shrouded in mystery and fear, where no one ever returns from. Yuma's eyes reflect the absolute hopelessness of his situation. He's been shoved into a town that serves as a one-way trip for death row inmates, a place they can never leave until the day they die. Twilight Town stretches out before him, a sprawling, high-walled urban nightmare. It's a massive ghetto designed to keep the world's most dangerous criminals contained, isolated from the rest of society forever. The scale of the town is overwhelming, with inmates thrown in like common trash into a dumpster. Amidst the grim landscape, Yuma hears a soft, haunting voice in his memory. It's keyed, telling him that he has to live no matter what. Putting on his jacket, Yuma tries to steel himself, though his eyes remain hollow. He's haunted by the thought that, whether he lives or dies in this hellhole, he might never see Keed again. The uncertainty of survival weighs heavier on him than the box he's carrying. He finally builds up the courage to open box A. His eyes widen in surprise as the latch clicks open. He's desperate for anything that can help him survive the next few minutes. Inside the box, Yuma finds a sharp combat knife and a small, mysterious card with a number 1 printed on it. It's not much, but it's a start. His gaze lingers on the blade, knowing it's now his only lifeline. A memory of Keed flickers through his mind. She's smiling, talking about how a knife is the single most important thing to bring if you're ever stranded on a deserted island. Her words, once light-hearted, now feel like a dark omen. He thinks back to a happier day, sitting in a restaurant with Keed. The contrast between that warm, sunlit room and the cold, gray walls of Twilight Town is enough to make him want to scream. It feels like a lifetime ago. Returning to the harsh present, Yuma examines the card. He can understand the knife, but he has absolutely no clue what this card is for or why it was included in his starting gear. Is it a tool, a ticket, or something else entirely? His train of thought is violently interrupted. From high above, a figure plummets through the air, their descent a blur of motion against the building walls. Yuma can only watch in shock as the inmate falls. The sound of the impact is sickening. The person slams into the concrete with a bone-shattering thud right in front of Yuma. Dust and debris kick up as the body comes to a rest, leaving him paralyzed with fear. A person fell down. Was it a jump? Yuma's mind races as he stares at the bloody scene. He looks down at his combat knife, realizing that at least he got something better than a rope, which seems to be what the dead inmate was holding. Suddenly, another person appears on the roof above, looking down with a desperate expression. AG Loki reaches out, his face twisted in grief. Yuma tenses up, wondering if this newcomer is a threat or a potential ally in this lawless land. Yuma thinks about running. He needs to get away, but his curiosity and fear keep him rooted to the spot. He watches as Loki scrambles down, his eyes never leaving the lifeless body on the ground. He reminds himself of the hard truth. Everyone he meets in this town is a criminal, a death row inmate like himself. There's no room for trust, only survival. And yet, he can't help but look back at the tragedy unfolding. Yuma stands a few paces away as Loki approaches the body. The alleyway is silent except for the distant sounds of the town. He's desperate to know who this person is and what just happened. Loki breaks down completely, his face streaming with tears. He cries out for Takashi, the friend who apparently just lost his life. Seeing a hardened criminal weep like a child catches Yuma off guard, humanizing the monster for a split second. Yuma notices the rope lying next to the corpse. It seems Takashi was incredibly unlucky with his starting equipment, receiving only a length of rope. In a world of knives and killers, he stood no chance, and his desperation likely led to his fall. In a world where trust is a liability, Yuma Chigami cautiously shares his name. The weeping man introduces himself as Eiji Loki, a convicted robber and murderer with 47 years left on his sentence. Despite his brutal record, Loki's grief seems genuine as he pleads with Yuma to help him dispose of the body. Pointing toward a distant facility, Loki explains the town's twisted logic. Bodies must be processed instantly to prevent disease. It's a grisly initiation for Yuma, but Loki's insistence makes it clear that in this place, even death is just another chore to be managed. Trapped in a situation he never asked for, Yuma Chigami is a mess of sweat and nerves. He doesn't want to touch a corpse, but he's lost and knows absolutely nothing about Twilight Town. Maybe helping Eiji Loki will finally get him some answers. Loki's eyes go cold as he pulls out a brutal-looking machete. "I guess I have no choice but to cut him up," he says, ready to dismember his friend's body for easy transport. Yuma panics at the sight of the blade, shouting for him to stop. "Wait, I'll help." Loki is still weeping for his friend, but he manages to offer a small thank you to Yuma. Yuma looks intensely uncomfortable, his face scrunched up as the reality of what he's about to do sinks in. Internally, Yuma is fighting a battle with his own prejudice. He feels guilty for judging Loki by his appearance and criminal past, realizing that even in a place like this, there might be people who truly repent for what they've done. High above in her observation deck, Kano casually sips from mug. She watches the two men bond over the grisly task on her monitors, looking more amused than anything else by their struggle. The surveillance room is a wall of screens, all focused on the young newcomer. Kano's voice rings out with a chilling tone, reminding him that in this town, death is always just a heartbeat away. "You might die, Yuma Chigami." Yuma and Loki each take a side of the cold, stiff corpse. They begin the slow, grim march through the deserted streets, the weight of the dead man serving as a constant reminder of where they are. Avo. As they struggle with the weight, Yuma admits that this is the first time he's ever touched a dead body. Loki stops in his tracks, looking at him with genuine disbelief. "You've never killed a person before?" They eventually arrive at a massive, boxy machine with a haunting face painted on its side, Okika-san. It's the town's disposal unit, and the sight of it makes Yuma's skin crawl. Yuma can only gag as he realizes he's truly an innocent man among monsters. Loki places the body on the conveyor belt, his expression turning grim. He looks Yuma in the eye and delivers a hard truth. In this town, the only way to survive is by taking the lives of others. Yuma's heart hammers against his ribs. He realizes that normally, people don't have experience killing, but in Twilight Town, he is the minority. He's surrounded by people who have already crossed that line. The conveyor belt groans to life as Okiku-san begins to process the delivery. A screen flashes with the weight, 62 kilograms. Loki bows his head in thanks, but Yuma can only stare in horror as the machine does its work. A close-up shows the mechanical mouth of Okiku-san swallowing the remains. Blood splatters against the metal as the body is processed into nothing more than data on a screen. The sound of the machine haunts Yuma. He looks down, tears of frustration and horror welling up in his eyes. "Why do we have to kill?" he whispers to himself. Loki leads Yuma to another machine called Chef. He points to the screen, showing Yuma a balance of 159 kilograms. Yuma is confused, wondering what the weight has to do with anything. Hello, Loki. Loki explains that this isn't just a machine. It's a shop where you buy everything from food to weapons. Yuma's eyes widen as he starts to understand the sick economy of this town. Could it be? Loki spells it out for him with a chilling nonchalance. In Twilight Town, the weight of the people you kill is the currency. You trade human flesh for the tools of survival. The digital menu is a grim shopping list. A bento costs 2 kilograms, while a simple bottle of water goes for 1 kilogram. Every meal requires someone else's death to pay for it. As a reward for helping him with the body, Loki tosses Yuma a bottle of water. Yuma catches it, his hands trembling. He can't believe such a cruel rule is the law of the land. Why such a rule? Loki reminds Yuma of Kano's initial explanation. The goal is to make inmates kill each other to reduce the population. To the government, the taxes spent on maintaining them were just a waste. It's kill or be killed. Yuma looks at the figures of the other inmates, dangerous, hardened villains. He feels utterly powerless. He doesn't think he has the strength or the will to kill any of them. I don't feel like I can do it. Loki scrolls down to the bottom of the list, showing Yuma the ultimate prize, a Yukigimo lifetime pass for a staggering 10,000 kilograms. It's the goal that everyone in town is aiming for. Following Loki's gaze, Yuma looks toward a massive, futuristic pyramid rising from the heart of the town. Yukigimo is over there, Loki explains. It's an annex of Twilight Town. Loki paints a picture of Yukigimo as a literal paradise. Inside those walls, murder is strictly forbidden, food is plentiful, and prisoners are treated like human beings again. A sanctuary hidden in the heart of this hell. Yuma's breath catches. In there, he might actually stand a chance at staying alive. A desperate hope finally ignites in Yuma's eyes. If he can just reach that sanctuary, maybe he can survive long enough to prove his innocence. Suddenly, he remembers the strange card from his starting gear. Ah, he exclaims, reaching into his pocket to pull it out. Yuma Chigami shows the mysterious card to AG Loki, hoping for an explanation. Loki's eyes nearly pop out of his head as he realizes what it is, a one-day pass to Yukigimo. To a prisoner in this hell, it's like hitting the ultimate jackpot. Yuma can't believe his luck. Finally, something is going right. Feeling a sense of camaraderie, Yuma admits that besides the pass, his only other starting gear was a simple combat knife. He thinks he's found a friend in Loki, unaware of the predatory look that just flickered across the other man's face as he stares at the card. Loki suddenly snatches the card away, his morning act completely forgotten. A chilling, sinister smile replaces his tears. Yuma is stunned, desperately asking for it back, but Loki just laughs, mentioning that this piece of plastic is worth a staggering 100 kilograms of meat. It's worth more than your life. Loki sneers, the facade finally dropped. But before he can enjoy his prize, a heavy baseball bat shatters the air, slamming into his head with bone-crushing force. The betrayal is interrupted by an even more brutal force. A new player enters the scene, Takuro Sakamura, a violent murderer sentenced to 64 years. He towers over the fallen Loki, casually picking up the Yukigimo pass while resting a blood-stained bat on his shoulder. To him, Yuma is just another pile of money waiting to be collected. Yuma can only stare in horror at Takuro's right eye. The socket is a mess of scar tissue and what looks like crawling larvae. The man is a walking nightmare, talking about the value of flesh as if human lives were nothing more than groceries. Takuro points to his grotesque eye, a terrifying reminder that in Twilight Town, you can survive things that would kill a normal man. His voice is cold and detached as he warns Yuma that humans can keep living even when parts of them are ripped away. Takuro's boredom vanishes, replaced by a lethal hunger. Actually, never mind, he says with a shrug. I'm going to kill you anyway. He raises his bat, ready to turn Yuma into more kilograms for his account. Takuro laughs maniacally, his joy at the prospect of a big payday echoing through the deserted street. He's delighted by the easy profit he's about to make from 2 losers and a stolen pass. To him, this is the best day of his life. Yuma is on the ground, blood dripping from a fresh wound. He's paralyzed by the speed and brutality of it all. Takuro looks down at him with a smug, predatory grin, relishing his good luck. In this town, the strong don't just win, they devour the weak. The weight of the horror finally breaks Yuma. He clutches his head, his face a mask of agony as tears of blood and salt stream down his cheeks. He's realizing that innocence is a death sentence in a place built for monsters. Beside him, the treacherous Loki is now the one begging for mercy. He grovels at Takuro's feet, offering up 100 kilograms of meat just to stay alive. Takuro just laughs, looking at the pathetic display with utter disgust. Gross, he sneers. Through his pain, Yuma's mind begins to sharpen. He realizes he was played by Loki from the very first second. The mourning friend was just a lure to get a newcomer to carry the corpse to the disposal unit, a convenient way for Loki to get a kill without lifting a finger. Everything makes sense now. Loki's plan was a perfect one-stone, multiple-bird strategy. He got help with the body, found a new target, and was ready to steal their gear the moment they reached the machine. Yuma realizes he's been a sitting duck, delivering himself on a silver platter. A dark thought flashes through Yuma's mind. If Loki is this cold, then he probably didn't just fail to save Takashi. He probably threw the man off the roof himself. Every accidental death in this town is likely a calculated murder. Takuro prepares for the final blow. Yuma's brain is screaming for a way out. Should he run? No. He's trapped between a murderer and a traitor. He needs a move that changes the game entirely, but he doesn't have one. The predator-prey dynamic is absolute. Takuro is delighted by Yuma's spirit, but the young man is only filled with a cold, hollow dread. He's counting the seconds until the bat ends his journey before it even truly began. Yuma's face is scrunched in absolute terror. He can't breathe, can't move. He's never felt more vulnerable in his entire life. A sacrificial lamb in a town of wolves. But then a voice shatters the tension. Hey. Suddenly, the air is split by a massive, unseen strike. Takuro is caught completely off guard as a shadow larger than his own looms over the entire alleyway. Someone, or something, far more dangerous has just arrived. A massive blow sends Takuro flying back. Loki is frozen in shock, his eyes wide as he realizes the hierarchy of power in this alley has just been reset. Seeing his chance, Yuma scrambles back, his survival instincts finally kicking in. Loki wonders if Yuma's shout was a distraction, or if someone actually came to help. He looks toward the source of the attack, his terror reaching a new peak. In this town, help usually just means a different kind of killer. Takuro's face is twisted in an unhinged, predatory grin as he realizes he's about to be eaten. He looks up at the rooftop, where another figure stands, silhouetted against the dark sky. This is no longer a robbery, it's a feeding frenzy. From high above, a figure jumps down with lethal precision. He's huge, wearing a terrifying mask and leather armor that makes him look like a monstrous scarecrow. He targets Takuro with a speed that defies his size. The monstrous giant, Michiya Nairi, seizes Takuro and unleashes a level of brutality that defies human comprehension. Amidst the sickening sound of tearing flesh and gut-wrenching screams, he begins to literally peel the skin from Takuro's face, turning the street into a butcher shop in seconds. Splattered with the blood of the man who was just threatening his life, Yuma Chigami watches in absolute, bone-chilling horror. Any lingering hope of playing by the rules is shattered. He realizes survival here isn't just difficult, it's a cruel impossibility. And as the giant turns, Yuma knows the predator has found its next meal. Standing over the gruesome remains of his latest victim, Michiya Nairi laughs with a bone-chilling madness. He's just peeled Takuro's face off like it was nothing, leaving Yuma Chigami paralyzed with a single, crushing thought. Surviving in a place like this is absolutely impossible. Nairi turns his attention to Yuma, eyeing him like a butcher looks at a scrawny animal. He mocks Yuma for being skin and bones, noting that he probably wouldn't even fetch a good price at the disposal unit. Yuma can only stare back, sweat and blood stinging his eyes. "You're next," Nairi says, casually dragging Takuro's mangled body toward the disposal machine. Yuma remains on the ground, his mind racing through every mistake he's made since entering this town. But amidst the fear, a tiny spark of memory begins to flicker. In a display of horrifying endurance, Takuro is still alive, his screams muffled and wet as he's hauled onto the conveyor belt of Okika-san. The machine calmly processes the delivery, announcing its weight, 88 kilograms. Yuma watches the man who just tried to kill him vanish into the grinder. Yuma drops to his knees, the sounds of mechanical grinding and dying gurgles filling his ears. The reality of the town's economy is laid bare before him. Life here is nothing more than a number on a screen, a currency paid in flesh. "I cannot afford to die." The words repeat like a mantra in Yuma's mind. He remembers the face of someone he left behind, the one person who makes his survival mean something. He can't let his journey end in an alleyway like common trash. Memories of Keed haunt him. He sees her lying in a sterile hospital bed, a victim of the very crime he was blamed for. She saved him once, and if he dies here, all her pain and sacrifice will have been for absolutely nothing. Yuma's expression hardens, his eyes narrowing as he forces back the panic. He has to act. He has to find a way to overcome a monster that stands nearly 7 feet tall. What can I do? In order to live, Nairi looks back at his remaining meal, a sadistic grin visible through his stitched-together mask. He's already dreaming of the steak he'll buy at Yukigimo once he cashes in Yuma's weight. To him, Yuma isn't a human being. He's just a 50-kilogram ticket to paradise. But the butcher's prey is gone. In the time it took Nairi to savor his victory, Yuma has bolted. The giant stands alone in the alley, momentarily stunned by the sudden disappearance of the cowardly newcomer. He ran. Yuma is running with everything he has, his lungs burning and his teeth grit in a silent scream. He's finished with being a victim. "Don't screw with me," he snarls internally. "I will absolutely not die." He thinks back to the life he worked so hard to build. He studied, he followed the rules, he did everything he was supposed to just to have a normal future. All of it was shattered by a false accusation, but he won't let his story end as a tragic mess. Present-day Yuma is a far cry from the student he once was. His face is a mask of blood and sweat, but his eyes carry a focus he never knew he possessed. He's searching for a specific spot, a specific tool that he saw earlier. He finds it, the rope that belonged to the first inmate he saw die. "Thank goodness it's still there," he gasps. It's a humble piece of equipment, but in Yuma's hands, it's about to become a lethal weapon. Nairi strolls down the street, completely unbothered. He thinks running is a meaningless gesture in a town surrounded by 50-meter walls. To him, Yuma is just an idiot playing a game he can't win. Oh well, this is just the right way to kill time. Suddenly, a shadow lunges from a nearby building. Yuma drops from above, the rope already looped and ready. Before Nairi can even register the movement, the cord is around his thick neck. "Where did you go?" he wonders, right as the trap snaps shut. Yuma pulls with every ounce of his strength, using his body weight to anchor the loop. Nairi gasps, his hands clawing at the air as he wonders how a sitting duck could possibly mount an attack like this. "You bastard," he wheezes. Yuma's plan is working perfectly. He realized that Nairi's heavy leather armor and mask, while offering protection, severely limit his field of vision and hearing. By attacking from the blind spot he created, Yuma has turned the giant into his own prey. Nairi tries to stay calm, to act tough, but the pressure on his windpipe is real. He's struggling to breathe as Yuma continues to pull, his face a mask of primal determination. The hunter has become the one being hunted. Nairi realizes with a jolt of panic that he's being dragged. He's losing his footing, his massive frame no match for the leverage Yuma is using against him. "I'm being dragged with incredible force," he thinks as he nears the disposal machine. The screams of the giant echo through the street as he's pulled right toward the conveyor belt of Okika-san. The machine's eyes seem to watch him with a cold, mechanical hunger as it waits for its next delivery. Yuma's expression is one of savage focus. He's accepted the truth of this town. In order to live, he has no choice but to kill. The innocence he clung to is gone, replaced by a cold, hard will to survive at any cost. Nairi fights back with everything he has, his hands desperate to loosen the rope. But the momentum is too much. He's being pulled onto the metal slats of the conveyor belt, his reign of terror coming to a sudden, violent end. Damn it, you bastard! A sickening snap echoes through the alleyway as the mechanical mouth of Okiku-san latches onto its latest prize. Nairi is jerked violently toward the darkness, his massive frame clawing at the conveyor belt as the machinery begins to claim its due. Yuma stands over the machine, gasping for air, his silhouette a mask of blood and grit against the flickering alley lights. He delivers a final, defiant warning to the dying giant, swearing that one should never underestimate someone who has lived honestly. But even at death's door, the monster isn't finished talking. Even as the machinery begins to claim him, Michiya Nairi offers one final, haunting observation. He points to his head, mocking the human spirit. To him, Yuma's newfound courage is just a desperate act of someone pretending to have conquered their fear right before the end. He refuses to believe that a normal person could truly change, but as the shadows take him, the fire in Yuma's eyes tells a different story. The innocent man is dead. A survivor has been born. Welcome back to Twilight Town, an extraterritorial special zone where the law doesn't exist. This is a lawless wasteland where death row inmates are dumped, never to leave until they die. Attempting to break the walls or escape triggers the explosive collar around your neck, resulting in an instant, messy end. Or so they say. For Yuma Chigami, this is now his reality. In this hellhole, survival has a brutal price. You can't even secure a single meal unless you're willing to kill someone. Behind every shadow, a monster is waiting to tear you apart, and the town itself seems designed to harvest the souls of the weak. Right now, Yuma is facing his first nightmare, Michiya Nairi. This hulking brute, wearing a mask sewn together from the faces of his victims, is hunting Yuma like a piece of meat. Yuma realizes that to survive, he has only one choice. He has to kill this man. Sweat pours down Yuma's face as he grips his knife. His mind is screaming at him to run, to flee from this impossible monster. But he knows the truth. There is nowhere to run in Twilight Town. Running will only lead to a slower, more painful death. Yuma assesses the situation with a cold, calculated clarity. Even though he's a mess, his mind is sharp. He knows that if he escapes Nairi now, the next inmate he meets might be even worse. He needs to take down this giant right here, right now, to claim the Yukigimo one-day pass and buy himself some time. But Nairi isn't waiting for a strategy. He's already swinging. Nairi lunges with a devastating axe swing. The force of the blow shatters the ground, sending debris flying everywhere. Yuma barely manages to dodge, realizing that a single hit from that weapon would end him instantly. As the debris falls, Yuma remembers the rules. The black buildings are sacred. Breaking them is a violation. He catches a glimpse of the administrator, a mysterious woman with a black veil, watching the chaos with a smirk. She knows that in this town, the environment is just as deadly as the inmates. Nairi's power is abnormal, a sheer brute strength that defies logic. He looms over Yuma like an unstoppable force of nature, his every movement radiating a terrifying bloodlust. How can a normal person possibly stand against such a monster? As Yuma struggles, the administrator reviews Nairi's profile. Michiya Nairi, 33 years old, a former construction worker. But he wasn't always this monster. His path to madness was paved with suffering. Nairi suffered horrific abuse from his parents since childhood. He endured 39 bone fractures, severe burns, and infectious diseases that brought him to the brink of death time and time again. The trauma didn't break him. It forged something far more dangerous. At age 11, he began a twisted training for revenge. By age 18, He carried it out with terrifying precision. He crushed his parents' bones in the exact same 39 places he had once been fractured, including their femurs, using nothing but his bare hands. He proved that even the strongest human bones were nothing against his sheer will. In Twilight Town, he is known as the Parent Breaker. The administrator notes that for any living creature, the most important thing for survival is strength. And in terms of individual power, Nairi is nearly the strongest in the entire town. But she's curious about Yuma, the boy she calls Route B. Human history is a saga of overturning brute strength with technology and tools. The administrator stares at Yuma's profile, wondering if he can prove that his ability is enough to survive against a force like Nairi. If you are Route B, she whispers, then show me your power. Back on the streets, Yuma is still fleeing for his life. In the distance, another inmate is watching the hunt with amusement. This is Najaharu Hibana, a blond man with a relaxed smirk who seems completely unfazed by the carnage unfolding before him. Hibana finds the situation interesting. He wonders if Yuma is just another regular death row inmate or something more. He watches Nairi's mindless pursuit and decides to have a little fun of his own. Then, I'll give you a little hint, Hibana says, tossing an empty can into the air with a casual flick of his wrist. It's a small gesture, but in a psychological battle, a small nudge can change everything. The can hits the ground with a loud clang. The sudden noise echoes through the alleyway, causing Nairi to twitch. His eyes, restricted by the mask, dart toward the sound. Yuma catches the moment of distraction he's been waiting for. Nairi reflexively swings his massive axe at the can, crushing it flat against the ground. The brute is acting on pure instinct, but his instinct is exactly what Yuma plans to exploit. I see. Yuma thinks, his eyes wide as he finally understands Nairi's fatal flaw. The realization hits Yuma like a bolt of lightning. Nairi isn't just reacting, he's overreacting. His limited vision and hearing make him hypersensitive to any stimulus from behind or the sides. He swings reflexively at whatever he can't clearly see. Yuma begins his countermaneuver, cognitive guidance. By using his clothes and shoes as decoys, he can manipulate Nairi's perception. He prepares to lure the giant into attacking the one thing that will trigger the town's most lethal defense, the infrastructure itself. Standing tall amidst the rain and blood, Yuma's expression has changed. The fear is gone, replaced by the cold focus of a master tactician. He isn't the prey anymore. He's the one setting the trap. He's about to turn Nairi's own strength into his executioner. While Yuma executes his plan, the administrator dives deeper into his records. Yuma Chigami, 23 years old, charged with arson and murder. A student who seemed ordinary, but whose alleged crimes were anything but. The charge was horrific, setting fire to an 8-unit apartment building, including his own room, in the dead of night. The entire building was completely destroyed, consumed by a fire that gave the residents no chance to escape. Yuma Chigami was sentenced to death for a horrific arson that killed 5 people and left his own fiancée severely injured. Though he screams his innocence, the law was deaf. But here, the administrator sees beyond the surface. She knows his Route B classification isn't a mistake. It's a testament to a mind too dangerous for the ordinary world. Show me you can survive, she whispers, watching Yuma with cold fascination. She knows that in this hellscape, a bat and knife are mere toys. His true power lies in his ability to weaponize his own trauma. As he prepares his next move, the atmosphere shifts. The hunter is about to become the victim of a very different kind of game, and Nairi is just beginning to feel the heat. Nairi is losing his patience. He growls in frustration, wondering how much longer this bastard Yuma intends to keep running. To a predator like Nairi, Yuma is nothing more than a slippery mouse refusing to accept its fate. Yuma's fighting style is unlike anything Nairi has faced. It's not about strength, but about being as annoying as possible. Even through the thick, stitched skin of his mask, Nairi can feel the irritation building. Yuma knows that even a monster can be worn down if you poke at his nerves long enough. Suddenly, Yuma stops running and lunges forward. Instead of a kick, it's a focused push. Nairi is caught off guard, his massive frame stumbling. I was pushed, he thinks in disbelief. The physical contact is a shock. He never expected the weakling to actually touch him. Nairi's eyes widen behind his mask as he sees Yuma's knife. The proximity is dangerous, but it's exactly where Yuma needs to be to execute the next phase of his plan. The tension in the air is palpable as the hunter and the hunted are locked in a lethal dance. Yuma's eyes sharpen with cold calculation. He isn't trying to stab Nairi. He knows his blade can't pierce that thick skin. Instead, he's using Nairi's own massive body weight against him. A well-timed push at the right angle can cause more damage than any blade, sending the giant reeling toward the cold stone walls. Nairi's axe slams into the wall, sending shards of stone flying. He lets out a grunt of effort, barely managing to keep his footing. Yuma watches from a crouched position, breathing hard, his mind racing to keep up with the monster's movements. Yuma's blood runs cold as he watches Nairi stop his massive momentum using nothing but the strength of his right arm. The realization hits him like a physical blow. Nairi isn't just strong, he's a freak of nature. An attack is coming, and Yuma knows he's in serious trouble. Yuma analyzes the physics of the fight. An axe that heavy must be swung down with full force. He decides that as long as he protects his head and upper body, he can avoid a fatal wound. It's a desperate gamble, sacrificing his limbs to keep his life. Nairi's rage explodes into a flurry of strikes. The range of his axe is terrifyingly wide, leaving Yuma with nowhere to hide. I'm going to put you into Okiki-san while you're still alive, Nairi snarls. The threat of the processing machine is more terrifying than the axe itself. If Yuma misses even a single guard, it's all over. Nairi's shadow looms large as he prepares to cripple his prey. He isn't aiming for the kill yet. He wants Yuma's legs. He wants to see the boy crawl as he's dragged toward the churning blades of the corpse processor. From the safety of her control room, the administrator watches with a bored expression. Power, she sighs, popping a sweet into her mouth. She doesn't understand the appeal of raw strength like Nairi's. To her, this isn't a fight. It's a messy execution that lacks the elegance she desires. Blood splatters across the floor as Nairi's axe finally finds its mark. Yuma screams in pain as he's thrown back by the sheer force of the impact. The weight of the blow is soul-crushing, leaving him gasping for air as his vision begins to blur. Nairi stands over the fallen boy, his shadow devouring Yuma. The strike was brutal, and even though Yuma tried to read the movements, the raw power was simply too much. Nairi chuckles, a dark, muffled sound behind his mask. Idiot, he mocks, looking down at the broken student. Yuma lies in a pool of his own blood, the pain radiating through his entire body. On the screens, the administrator's face is cold. You're a disappointment, she mutters. But on the ground, Yuma's fist is clenching. He realized the damage is bigger than he thought, but he isn't finished yet. However, he thinks his resolve hardening. Yuma's silhouette remains still on the ground as Nairi looms over him like an executioner. But in the darkness of his mind, Yuma is smiling. The pain, the blood, the terror, it was all part of the price. With this, he whispers internally, the preparations are complete. Yuma breaks down his plan. Taking those devastating attacks and using his limited tools weren't signs of weakness. They were necessary data points. He needed to understand Nairi's rhythm, his reflexes, and the exact limits of his mask-restricted vision. The trap is now set, and Nairi has walked right into it. I am innocent. The words burn in Yuma's mind, fueling a fire that the physical pain can't extinguish. This isn't just a fight for survival. It's a fight for his truth. He won't let his story end in a gutter at the hands of a mindless beast. A memory flashes through Yuma's mind. Someone dear to him, covered in bandages in a hospital bed, telling him to live. The injustice of his life being turned into a mess because of a criminal's arson flares into a white-hot rage. Don't mess with me, he screams in his heart. He'll get away from here, and then he'll find the truth. Yuma points toward the dark, gaping maw of the Okiku-san machine. His gaze is fixed on Nairi, his eyes wide with a terrifying focus. "I'll use Okiku-san to kill you," he declares. It's a bold threat from a man on the ground, but Yuma isn't bluffing. He's already calculated the geometry of Nairi's death. Suddenly, Yuma shouts at the top of his lungs, "Loki! Do it now!" Nairi's head snaps back, his instincts flaring. "Loki!" he repeats, his focus breaking as he searches for a second attacker from the shadows. In a world of betrayal, even a monster like Nairi fears a knife in the back. The bluff works perfectly. Nairi reflexively spins around, his axe swinging at nothing but air. The confusion in his eyes is visible even through the mask. Behind him, Yuma is already on his feet, sprinting toward the alleyway with every ounce of strength he has left. Nairi realizes he's been tricked. "An ally behind me," he roars, his pride stung. He watches Yuma run, his mind struggling to process how a weakling could be so bold. Even though he's on the verge of death, he lies and bluffs. Nairi thinks, his contempt for Yuma turning into a dangerous curiosity. Yuma sprints down the deserted alleyway, his silhouette disappearing between the bleak buildings of Twilight Town. Nairi watches him go, convinced that Yuma's weakness means he poses no real threat. Even with a knife, he can't kill me, Nairi thinks. He has no idea he's being lured into a killing floor. Yuma reaches the massive processing gate of Okiku-san, his breath shallow, but his mind sharper than ever. He's confirmed it. Nairi's reaction to his rear is abnormal, a fatal flaw in a town of hunters. On the control screens, the administrator's smile widens in dark anticipation. "Thank you, Yuma Chigami," she whispers, watching as the boy prepares to lure the beast into the belly of the machine. Nairi rounds the corner, his axe ready, but the alley is eerily still. "Where did that brat go?" he mutters, his eyes darting through the shadows. The only sound is the rhythmic, industrial hum of the Okiku-san processing unit behind him. Yuma has seemingly vanished into thin air, leaving Nairi alone with an unsettling silence that feels far too heavy. Nairi stares at the ground, bewildered. "Shoes," he mutters. He finds Yuma's sneakers sitting abandoned in the middle of the street, but the boy is nowhere to be seen. The hum of the Okiku-san machine behind him grows louder, adding to the unsettling atmosphere. Is the prey really hiding nearby, or has he vanished into the shadows? Yuma's eyes are cold and focused. He isn't running out of fear anymore. He's moving with a lethal purpose. He's prepared to die if it means taking a monster down with him. This is no longer a student trying to escape. It's a man pushed to his absolute limit, ready to sacrifice everything for a single chance at victory. In her high-tech monitoring room, the administrator leans forward, her eyes wide with sudden interest. She watches the screens as Yuma executes his final maneuver. "What are you doing there?" she whispers. The boredom she felt moments ago has been replaced by a growing fascination with this Route B prisoner. The administrator's expression shifts to one of grim anticipation. "Do you still have a plan?" she wonders aloud. She has seen countless inmates die in these streets, but Yuma's actions are erratic, tactical, and utterly desperate. She can feel the climax of the game approaching, and she doesn't want to miss a single second. Nairi realizes the sneakers aren't moving at all. No, wait a minute. He thinks his paranoia is spiking. He envisions Yuma circling around the massive black structure of the Okiku-san, intending to launch a surprise attack from his blind spot. The hunter is beginning to feel like the one being hunted, and the uncertainty is making him reckless. Nairi scans the area, his mind racing. Was the noise of the machine used to hide Yuma's footsteps? Yuma, meanwhile, is weighing the heavy cost of his next move. Today he thinks, knowing that success means becoming a murderer and failure means a brutal death. It's no longer about the law. It's about survival in its purest, most violent form. A fleeting image of a smiling girl, his fiancée, flashes through Yuma's mind. She was his whole world, and now she's a broken memory in a hospital bed. The thought that he might never see her again is a pain sharper than any axe. It's the final push he needs to cross the line. I won't let anything be taken from me anymore. Not even my life. Yuma's resolve explodes in a primal shout. Hey! He sucks in a jagged breath, his eyes wide and bloodshot, as he prepares to launch himself into the jaws of the beast. This is his final stand, and he will live no matter what. Over here! Yuma's voice echoes from above. Nairi's head snaps up, his eyes widening in shock as he sees a silhouette plummeting toward him from the heights of the Okikasan. The move is insane, suicidal, and it's the one thing Nairi never anticipated. From above, Nairi roars, his reflexes taking over. He swings his massive axe with everything he has, convinced that he's about to split Yuma in two. Too bad for you, he laughs, the bloodlust clouding his judgment as he commits to the strike. But the shadow he's attacking isn't what it seems. The impact is deafening. Shards of stone and metal fly through the air as the force of Nairi's swing connects. The sheer violence of the moment creates a chaotic explosion of debris, obscuring the truth of what just happened. Nairi thinks he's won, but the ground beneath him is already shifting. Nairi's eyes bulge in terror as he realizes he's struck nothing but air and the structure itself. Yuma's voice, cold and mocking, cuts through the din. I knew you'd try to catch me off guard. The giant tries to pull back, but the momentum of his own strength is now his greatest enemy. Wait, he gasps, realizing too late that he's fallen into a perfectly executed trap. Yuma watches from above as Nairi's axe slams into the sacred black wall of the Okikasan. The structure cracks, a direct violation of the town's strictest laws. Yuma used his jacket as a decoy, letting Nairi's own power destroy the very infrastructure he was supposed to avoid. The trap is sprung, and the town is about to respond. The mechanical voice of the system echoes through the street. Violation confirmed. Nairi looks down at his glowing collar, his face draining of color. He understands the rules better than anyone. Destroying the black facilities is a death sentence. Yuma stands behind him, half-clothed and covered in blood, watching as the system takes over the execution. The administrator explains the mechanism of the town's law. Destruction of black facilities is strictly prohibited to ensure the town's operation. When a violation is confirmed, the spike collar around the prisoner's neck doesn't just explode, it executes. Nairi has become a liability to the system, and the system is designed to be efficient. The administrator's eyes shine with delight as she breaks down Yuma's triple trap. First, he used his bat to climb onto the Okikasan. Second, he took off his shoes to mask his location. And third, he used his clothes as a decoy, luring Nairi into striking the black wall. It was a masterclass in tactical manipulation, turning a monster's strength into his own downfall. The breakdown continues. Cognitive guidance. Yuma maximized the surprise of an attack from above by making Nairi fixate on his front and back. Then positional guidance. By taking hits and intentionally appearing weak, Yuma lured Nairi into the perfect position near the Okikasan. Every move was a calculation, every drop of blood a part of the bait. Finally, doubt guidance. By deceiving Nairi multiple times, Yuma planted a seed of doubt that made the giant hesitate just long enough. The thought that there's no telling what Yuma Chigami will do kept Nairi off balance, preventing him from seeing the simple reality of the trap until it was too late. Yuma stands before his defeated foe, a figure of terrifying intellect. Every action taken was a trap. Yuma's face is a mask of exhaustion and grim satisfaction. He didn't win because he was stronger, but because he was smarter. Nairi's terrified gaze meets Yuma's, realizing that the weakling he hunted was actually the most dangerous person he'd ever met. The monster is finally facing his end. Yuma's ability transcends simple physical strength. He is a god of tactics, a guide to the afterlife like the ancient god Hermes. He has orchestrated a symphony of death, leading his opponent down a path where every step led closer to the grave. This is the power of Route B, the power of a mind that can rewrite the rules of survival. A death-sending divine play. Yuma stands tall as Nairi's body begins to collapse under the pressure of the collar spikes. The atmosphere is heavy with the scent of blood and ozone. Yuma looks like a cold-blooded executioner, a man who has traded a piece of his soul for the right to keep living. The giant is falling, and a new legend is being born in the streets of Twilight Town. Blood splatters into the air as the collar finishes its work. Nairi's massive frame is tossed aside like a broken doll. His reign of terror ended in a single, messy instant. The silence that follows is deafening, broken only by the sound of Yuma's ragged breathing. The monster is dead, and the town has claimed another soul. The reality of what he's done hits Yuma with the force of a tidal wave. "I killed him," he whispers, tears streaming down his face. No matter how bad of a person he was, I killed a human. The weight of the kill is crushing, a burden that his student's heart wasn't prepared to carry. The victory tastes like ash in his mouth. Yuma's body finally rebels against the trauma of his first kill, and he collapses to his knees, retching. In the lawless hell of Twilight Town, he's realized that human life is the only currency, yet the cost to his soul feels unbearable. Suddenly, a casual, almost cheerful voice cuts through his misery. "Hey, curly hair." Yuma looks up, startled, as a new figure looms in the darkness, watching him with a gaze that is both predatory and strangely amused. Najiharu Hibana walks casually toward the broken boy, his striped haori fluttering in the damp air. He looks down at Yuma with a nonchalant smirk, his eyes sharp with a cold, terrifying intelligence. "I helped you out, so how about you return the favor?" he says, his tone friendly, but his presence radiating a hidden danger. Yuma scrambles back, his heart hammering against his ribs. He's just escaped a mindless monster, only to find himself in the sights of someone far more unpredictable. Najiharu Hibana flashes a wide, carefree grin. "I threw the can for you, didn't I?" He laughs, revealing that the small distraction Yuma used was actually his doing. Yuma is paralyzed with confusion, staring at this stranger who talks about favors in a place like Twilight Town. A profile appears for Najiharu Hibana. Charge, robbery and murder, sentence, 69 years. This isn't just a passerby. He's a heavy hitter who's been here a long time. Hibana leans in close, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "There might be a way to get out of Twilight Town," he says. The words are like a siren's song to Yuma, who has been told since his arrival that escape is impossible. Hibana watches the boy's reaction, gauging whether he has the spark needed for what comes next. This guy's making contact. In her control room, the administrator's eyes light up with predatory glee. She pops another candy into her mouth, leaning closer to the monitors. This is going to get interesting. She knows Hibana's reputation, and seeing him approach the newcomer is a development she didn't fully expect. The game just evolved. Hibana reaches out and touches Yuma's face, his gaze suddenly piercing. "Route B," he murmurs, using the same classification the administrator used. "Won't you help me?" Yuma feels a chill run down his spine. This man reeks of danger, far more subtle and lethal than the brute force of Nairi. Hibana is a predator who understands the mind. A bird's-eye view shows the grim reality of the street. Nairi's headless body lies in a pool of blood next to his massive axe, a testament to Yuma's victory. Hibana and Yuma crouch together, two small figures in a vast, uncaring city. "There might be a way to get out of Twilight Town," the caption repeats, emphasizing the impossible hope Hibana is dangling before the protagonist. The two exchange names. "I'm Nagiharu Hibana. Just call me Hibana," the blond man says with a smile that doesn't reach his eyes. Yuma introduces himself, but his mind is racing. A way out of this town? It sounds like a trap, but in a world of certain death, even a trap is a chance. "The administrator is watching us, so be careful how you move your mouth," Hibana warns, aware of the invisible eyes above. "Nice to meet you, Yuma." Hibana's friendly demeanor is jarringly out of place. Yuma looks at him, trying to decipher his goal. Is he an ally, or just another monster looking for a plaything? Before he can decide, the sound of approaching footsteps breaks the tension. Something or someone is coming. Eiji Loki, the thug who betrayed Yuma in the first chapter, suddenly appears with a jagged machete. He sees Nairi's corpse, and his eyes light up with greed. Ponytail samurai, he sneers at Hibana. Let's cut him up together and split the loot. He has no idea who he's talking to, or the lethal mistake he just made by interrupting. Loki continues his taunts, oblivious to the danger. I just saved you, didn't I? He shouts at Yuma, trying to reclaim his dominance. Yuma stares at him in utter disbelief. You've got to be kidding me, he thinks. Is this the mindset of a death row inmate? He realizes that in this town, some people have lost every shred of human decency. Yuma looks at the two men, the arrogant, petty Loki and the mysterious, calm Hibana. In this guy's brain, Yuma thinks, looking at Loki, there isn't a single millimeter of goodwill. He's exhausted, covered in wounds, and surrounded by killers. The situation is rapidly spiraling out of his control. Hibana stands silent, his expression unreadable as Loki continues to babble. Yuma is caught between them, his hand on the hilt of his weapon, his eyes darting back and forth. I won't die, Yuma screams internally. He's already killed once today. He's prepared to do it again if he has to. But Hibana is already moving. Close up on Hibana's eyes. They are sharp, cold, and utterly devoid of pity. He looks at Yuma, then back at Loki. Are you serious? He mutters, his hand moving toward the sword at his waist. The air in the alleyway suddenly feels thick with the scent of impending death. Hibana has heard enough. Hibana lets out a soft sigh, covering his eyes. You're too cool, he says, though it's unclear if he's mocking Loki or praising Yuma's earlier fight. The smirk on his face is predatory. He's found his entertainment for the evening, and Loki is no longer a part of the script. Hey kid, you're misunderstanding one thing. Hibana's voice is calm, almost gentle. Loki barely has time to ask, who the hell are you? Before a silver flash cuts through the air. Hibana's sword moves so fast it's nearly invisible. Yuma is my ally, he says, and in the next heartbeat, Loki's head begins to slide off his neck. Gross, Hibana adds, looking at the spray of blood. Decapitation in an instant. Loki's head flies into the air as Hibana completes the strike with terrifying elegance. Anyone trying to kill my ally is an enemy, he declares. The sheer speed of the attack leaves no room for reaction. Loki, the man who thought he could loot a battlefield, is dead before his body even hits the ground. Loki's head hits the pavement with a sickening swish. Yuma is frozen, his eyes wide with shock. He's just witnessed a level of violence that makes Nairi's brute force look amateurish. Hibana stands there, sword already sheathed, as if he just swatted a fly. He turns back to Yuma, his expression shifting back to that casual, friendly mask. Hibana smiles at the traumatized Yuma. No need to thank me, he says. Yuma can only stammer, wait. He's horrified, not just by the death, but by the ease with which Hibana dealt it. He realizes that being Hibana's ally might be the most dangerous thing in the world. Yuma's internal monologue is a frantic mess. When did I become your ally? He screams in his head. But he's smart enough to know that if he denies it, he might be the next one to lose his head. He's covered in wounds, exhausted, and stuck with a smiling psychopath. His only way to survive right now is to play along with whatever game Hibana is running. What's this about a way to get out of Twilight Town? Yuma asks, his voice trembling. Hibana lights up, happy that Yuma is engaging. He looks like a child who just found a new playmate, a stark contrast to the executioner who just decapitated a man seconds ago. Yuma knows he's dancing with a devil, but the devil is the only one with a key to the exit. Hibana claps a hand on Yuma's shoulder. You really are incredible, Yuma. Even a death row inmate would be terrified and run away after all this happened. But you thought it through as an answer for how to survive. Normally, that's impossible. He's genuinely impressed by Yuma's tactical mind, seeing a potential in him that others missed. That's why you were able to kill Michi and Nairi. Hibana laughs, pointing to the brute's corpse in the background. You're seriously cool. Honestly, I've fallen for you. His admiration is as terrifying as his sword. He sees Yuma as a kindred spirit, another prisoner who uses his brain to rewrite the rules of the game. Yuma tries to explain. I'm nothing like that. I was a psychology major in college, though. I'm just desperate to stay alive. He shouts the truth, his face a mask of sweat and exhaustion. Hibana listens, but he seems to lose interest the moment Yuma starts talking about college. Well, whatever, Hibana shrugs, his attention already drifting. Yuma pulls him back to the main topic. About the way to get out of Twilight Town. Hibana blinks, as if he'd already forgotten. Oh, right, he says, his energy returning. They stand in the desolate alleyway, surrounded by tall, decaying buildings, discussing a legend that every prisoner dreams of but none believe. Hibana's playful smile fades, replaced by a sudden, chilling gravity. He holds up a finger to silence the noise of the town. There's someone who disappeared from this town. Without even dying, he reveals. In this hell's cape where the only way out is in a body bag, a prisoner who simply vanished is a legend. And for Hibana, it's the hook he needs to reel Yuma into his orbit. Yuma's analytical mind immediately looks for the hole in the story. Didn't they just die in a corner you didn't know about? He asks, his skepticism acting as a shield. Hibana's eyes fix on the distance, his voice steady and haunting. No, that's not it. It's clear this isn't just a rumor to him. And as he prepares to reveal his personal connection to the vanished prisoner, Yuma realizes he's being pulled into a mystery far deeper than his own survival. Hibana's smile turns slightly nostalgic. The one who disappeared was an ally I was with every day, he explains. This isn't just a rumor to him, it's personal. The mystery of the missing prisoner is the only thing keeping him interested in this hellish town, and he's convinced that Yuma's route B perspective is the final piece of the puzzle. Yuma listens intently, his analytical mind already at work. If they had allies, they wouldn't act alone in this town, he reasons. It would be strange for them to vanish without anyone knowing. He looks at Hibana, searching for a lie, but the blond man just stares back with those cold, piercing eyes. Did you notice anything else? Hibana asks, eager to see how Yuma processes the data. Yuma cuts straight to the chase. Do you have an idea of the place where that ally disappeared? Hibana's face lights up with genuine delight. Perfect, he whispers, his eyes wide. As expected of the talent that killed Nairi. He's increasingly convinced that Yuma isn't just a survivor, but a partner who can see the world as clearly as he does. Hibana points to a heavy metal door marked K5. They disappeared from solitary cell K5, he says. My room is right next door, so I know if anyone came or went. The implication is clear. The prisoner didn't walk out of the front door. Yuma looks at the cell, his mind racing. Wasn't the key sold out? He asks, remembering the town's inventory system. Yes, Hibana confirms. The mystery deepens. In other words, someone has that key, so I want to find them and take it, Hibana explains, his tone casual as if he's talking about a lost toy. Yuma stares at him, wondering why he's being dragged into this dangerous quest. Why are you making me help? He asks. Hibana's expression becomes serious. There are two reasons, he says, and Yuma knows he isn't going to like either of them. One, you probably don't realize it, but Michiya Nairi was a very strong and troublesome existence in this town, Hibana says, pointing at the massive corpse in the background. He laughs, calling Yuma a mysterious rookie who pulled off the impossible. By killing Nairi, Yuma has unknowingly declared himself a major player, and in Twilight Town, players attract attention, both good and bad. Hibana continues, his tone almost prayerful. Right now, almost everyone is terrified of the mysterious newcomer, Yuma, so you can move around relatively safely and freely. He then adds with a chilling smile, by the way, I wouldn't mind if you were the one to kill me. Yuma is speechless. This man's insanity runs deeper than he ever imagined. Hibana isn't looking for a friend. He's looking for someone who can match his lethality. Wait, Yuma says, stopping Hibana from walking away. We should search Nairi's belongings before processing him. He crouches over the massive body, his hands trembling as he reaches into the pockets of the dead giant. Hibana watches from a distance, curious to see what the rookie finds. In this town, even the dead have something to offer. A key? Yuma pulls out a heavy iron key and a small card. Hibana leans in, identifying the items with practiced ease. The one in the right hand is the key to the solitary cell where Nairi lived. The one in the left is a one-day pass for Yukigumo. These are the spoils of war, the tangible rewards for surviving a life-or-death struggle. Yuma holds them tightly, the weight of his actions finally sinking in. What's the cell number? Hibana asks, his hope visible for the first time. It would be a miracle if it were K5. They both look at the key, the small engraving holding the power to change their entire trajectory. The air is thick with anticipation as Yuma wipes the blood away to read the number. It's F5, Yuma mutters. What a shame. Hibana sighs, his disappointment palpable. The miracle didn't happen. He turns toward the shadows, his mood shifting back to cold practicality. Well then, shall we dispose of these guys? He asks, looking at the bodies of Nairi and Loki. Yuma looks down at his blood-stained hands and can only whisper, "Ugh." The grim reality of his situation is becoming his new normal. Yuma struggles to drag Nairi's massive corpse toward the Okiku-san machine. Every inch of movement is a struggle against the weight of his own trauma. Why now of all times? He gasps, his vision swimming with tears and exhaustion. The creepy face of the corpse processor looms over him, waiting for its next meal. This is the final indignity of death in Twilight Town, becoming nothing more than fodder for the city's machines. Nairi's headless body lies on the conveyor belt, surrounded by his discarded weapons. Heavy, Yuma thinks, watching as the machinery begins to pull the corpse inside. The sheer physical weight of the man is a haunting reminder of the strength Yuma had to overcome. He stands there, alone in the middle of the street, watching his first kill disappear into the belly of the beast. Yuma stares at Nairi's discarded mask, the empty eyes reflecting his own horror. Which means, I killed this guy. The truth is inescapable. No matter how much he tells himself it was self-defense, he has taken a life. He looks into the dark maw of the machine and realizes the terrifying fragility of his own existence. Twilight Town consumes everyone eventually. It means I might die like this too. The thought paralyzes Yuma. He envisions himself on that same conveyor belt, his identity reduced to a mask and his life reduced to a weight on a scale. He reaches out a trembling hand, as if trying to reclaim some shred of humanity from the giant he just destroyed. But the machine doesn't care about humanity, it only cares about processing. In her control room, the administrator watches with a satisfied smirk. "Thank you very much, Mr. Yuma Chigami," she says, her voice smooth and devoid of empathy. "You're not a monster or anything." She appreciates the efficiency of his work, seeing him as a useful tool for the town's ecosystem. To her, Yuma is just a high-performing asset in a game she's already won. The scale settles. It comes to 152 kilograms. The cold, clinical number is the only epitaph Michiya Nairi will ever receive. His life, his rage, his childhood trauma, it all boils down to a weight recorded by a machine. Yuma watches as the blood-splattered machinery finishes its work, a grim silence falling over the street once again. Hibana claps his hands together, startling Yuma. "Congratulations, Yuma. Not even 1 in 10 newcomers uses Okiku-san." He talks about the processing machine as if it's a rite of passage. Yuma can only lower his head, his face a mask of misery. He's done what was necessary, but the achievement feels like a curse. Hibana watches him, his amusement clearly growing. Michiya Nairi weighed a full 150 kilograms, Hibana notes, looking at the digital readout. That included the human skin, too. He wonders what Yuma will do with his newfound wealth and the massive axe left behind. Yuma stares at the equipment, his mind blank. He survived the giant, but now he has to survive the aftermath. And the town isn't done with him yet. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifts. Yuma's instincts, sharpened by his fight with Nairi, scream a warning. "What is it?" he whispers. On a rooftop far above, a figure is aiming a heavy crossbow equipped with a tactical scope. The crosshairs are centered right on Yuma's head. "I'm being targeted?" He realizes his blood running cold as he stares into the glint of the lens. Yuma's legs buckle as the stress and blood loss finally take their toll. A gun? No. Something like a crossbow. He panics, his mind racing through every possible defensive move. Hibana stands casually beside him, seemingly oblivious to the threat. "Are you okay?" he asks, even as the sniper prepares to pull the trigger. Yuma realizes that from this distance, they are sitting ducks. What is up with that guy? Yuma thinks, staring at the figure on the roof. Even if he shoots from this distance, he knows the crossbow bolt will arrive before he can even hear it. He looks at Hibana, who is still just standing there, and a dark thought crosses his mind. Does he just want to kill? In this town, there are no simple answers, only different ways to die. Yuma looks at the smiling Hibana. It might be better if Hibana gets killed. He thinks, the cold logic of survival taking over. This guy killed Loki. He might do the same to me someday. He realizes that Hibana is a far greater threat than any sniper. He's too dangerous. But even as the thought forms, Yuma's conscience won't let him stay silent. He can't just let another person die, even if it's a monster like Hibana. You're being targeted from behind. Yuma's scream is a raw, desperate thing as he lunges forward, his instinct to save a life overriding his own fear. In that frantic split second, his conscience wins out over his logic. The sniper's finger squeezes, the lethal bolt is loosed, and Hibana's mask of indifference finally cracks as he realizes the prey just risked everything to save him. The bolt whistles past, clattering harmlessly against the cold stone pavement. Hibana stands unscathed, his head tilting with a look of genuine, chilling curiosity as he stares down at the panting Yuma. "Whoa, for real," he murmurs, his eyes reflecting a new and dangerous fascination. He isn't even looking at the sniper on the rooftop. He's entirely focused on the man who just chose to spare his life. Hibana looks at Yuma, his head tilted in genuine confusion. Why? Why did you tell me?" he asks. "Don't you want me to die?" Yuma's face is a mask of grim determination as he crouches on the ground. "I thought so for a second, but something felt wrong." He mutters, "I'll decide for myself whether I want the person in front of me to die." Even in a town where life is cheap, Yuma refuses to let the environment dictate his soul. On the screens, the administrator pulls up Hibana's profile, her interest peaking. A flashback shows the crime Hibana was convicted of after entering a bank to rob it and killing 3 people. We see a younger Hibana standing calmly in front of a bank, surrounded by police. His expression is just as nonchalant back then as it is now. To the world, he is a mass murderer and a thief, a monster destined for the town's deepest cells. Upon stepping outside, he was shot at by the police. The image shows a police officer aiming a revolver with trembling hands. A bullet is fired, frozen in time as it streaks toward Hibana. This was supposed to be the end of his story, a clean execution on the streets, but the town had other plans for a talent like his. Hibana's eyes widen as he turns back to Yuma. "Just as I thought, Yuma. You came here on a false charge," he declares. "Between putting Michiya Nairi into Okika-san and right now, that soft-heartedness of yours is strange." Yuma is stunned. How did you know Dash?" he starts to ask, his face flushing with the shock of being seen so clearly. To Hibana, Yuma's morality is a glaring clue to his true nature. Another crossbow bolt streaks through the air, aimed directly at Hibana's head. "How did I know?" Hibana repeats, the question almost sounding like a game. The weapon on the roof is a high-tech crossbow with a sniper scope, and the shooter is determined. But Hibana doesn't even bother to duck. He's already seen the trajectory. "Because I'm also here on a false charge." In an explosion of movement, Hibana draws his sword and slices the incoming bolt in half with a single, elegant stroke. Hibana avoided that bullet, the administrator notes, her eyes fixed on the screen. The physics of the feat are impossible. A projectile traveling at nearly 1,000 kilometers per hour, cut down as easily as a falling leaf. This is the true power of the man Yuma just saved. The administrator's screen displays Hibana's classified data. Route B, possessing abnormal dynamic visual acuity. To her, he's a masterpiece. He's the one I want most right now, she whispers, her gaze predatory. Hibana isn't a prisoner. He's a biological anomaly, a weapon that the country wanted hidden away in Twilight Town, where it could be monitored and, perhaps, eventually harvested. Yuma is frozen, his eyes wide as he stares at the halved bolt on the ground. On a false charge? He gasps. Hibana looks back, his smile sharp and knowing. That's the second reason I chose you. You see, in Twilight Town. He begins to walk away, his striped haori fluttering. He has found a kindred spirit, a fellow victim of a system that fears what it cannot control. There are those who had crimes fabricated and were thrown in here on false charges because they possess special abilities, Hibana explains, looking out over the desolate skyline of the town. People like that in this town are called Route B. You too, Yuma. You were put in here because the country found out about some special ability of yours. The truth is finally out. Twilight Town isn't just a prison for criminals. It's a containment zone for the extraordinary. Each one is a monster or a miracle, a Route B anomaly with a lethal gift. There are so many amazing people in Twilight Town. The caption reads, promising a journey into the heart of madness. Yuma Chigami's survival has only just begun, and the God of Tactics is about to find out just how many other gods are waiting to meet him. To be continued. Najiharu Hibana leans in, curious if Yuma Chigami has some hidden talent he's not telling him about. Yuma just stares back, his mind racing with the memory of the false charges that dumped him into this nightmare. I was just a normal guy, Yuma insists, even as another deadly projectile slices through the air right next to his head. But Najiharu Hibana isn't normal. With a casual flick of his wrist, he catches the flying arrow mid-air, saving Yuma from certain death. Yuma's heart pounds. He realizes the marksman is a pro, but Hibana seems more interested in Yuma's reaction than the threat itself. Looking at the conveyor, Yuma realizes the gravity of their situation. If Hibana hadn't been there, his corpse would be feeding that machine by now. When Yuma praises his skill, Hibana actually blushes, showing a weirdly playful side in the middle of a literal death zone. Yuma's tactical mind begins to whirl. He deduces that the marksman on the roof isn't a lone wolf. There's another specter waiting to finish the job. Like clockwork, another bolt whistles toward them, and once again, Hibana catches it without even looking. In Twilight Town, killing isn't enough. You have to process the body. Yuma realizes they're being hunted like livestock for payday. High on the roof, the sniper remains stationary. Yuma realizes they have no intention of chasing. They're just pinning them down. What ghost are you talking about? Hibana asks, intrigued as Yuma starts mapping out the enemy's strategy in real time. Yuma explains that the sniper is just a setup. There has to be a finisher on the ground to deal the final blow to weaken prey. The trap is set. Yuma concludes they're being pincered, and staying still is just waiting for the inevitable. Then comes the crazy plan. Yuma suggests charging straight ahead instead of retreating. He realizes Hibana's unique skill is their trump card. If the sniper can't hit Hibana, the enemy's calculations are completely blown. Hibana stares at him, truly seeing Yuma for the first time. Yuma, you're a massive talent, he whispers, sensing something dangerous beneath the surface. A twisted smile spreads across Hibana's face. He loves the chaos and the way Yuma sees right through the lies of this town. Yuma checks the sniper's firing interval. We have to move now, he says, his fear pushing him to act rather than freeze. With a shout, they both charge forward, sprinting through the open square as arrows rain down around them. Suddenly, they run right into a new threat, Shino Usaka. With her twin buns and a massive chainsaw, she's shocked they actually dared to come toward her. Yuma's face turns bright red. He was so proud of his deduction, but it turns out she wasn't hiding at all. He just didn't see her. Shino bursts into laughter at the idiot who just ran into her, while Hibana can't stop chuckling at Yuma's embarrassing mistake. But the humor doesn't last. Shino contorts her body into a terrifyingly flexible pose, the chainsaw roaring to life in her hands. I'll kill you. Shino screams, lunging forward with her chainsaw roaring as she closes the distance in a blur of violent motion. The sniper above doesn't let up, but Hibana cleverly uses Shino's aggression as a shield against the incoming arrows. He braces himself, sensing the raw, chaotic energy of her impending strike. Shino Usaka's chainsaw slams into the ground with terrifying force, shattering the pavement. Najihiro Hibana is genuinely impressed by her unbelievable power, realizing she's not just a typical brawler. An arrow from Soda whistles right past Hibana's face while he's locked in combat. Yuma Chigami is horrified by the precision, wondering how they can shoot through the tiny gaps in her movements. Yuma's mind is racing, analyzing their insane coordination. They're shooting without hesitation, as if they have a perfectly synced routine or a way to signal each other in the heat of battle. Hibana stands his ground, telling Shino that they are a bad match. He claims he can see every single arrow coming, but the intensity of the situation suggests otherwise. Shino gives Hibana a creepy, stitched-up smile, asking if he hasn't realized yet that he might actually die. Hibana senses there's even more to her threat than just the chainsaw. Suddenly, an arrow from Soda's crossbow flies straight into Shino's own blind spot, piercing her body to get to Hibana. She doesn't even flinch, leaving Hibana completely stunned. "Yuma!" Hibana shouts, as the chaotic exchange of steel and arrows intensifies. Yuma is frozen in shock, unable to comprehend the madness unfolding before him. Yuma realizes with a sinking feeling that their opponents never intended for this to be a clean fight. They're willing to sacrifice their own safety to guarantee a kill. Shino reveals the terrifying truth. She has a body that doesn't feel pain. They fight with the absolute assumption that their own bodies will be pierced to hit their targets. Yuma stares at her in horror, his mind reaching a dark conclusion. Could she be a Route B talent just like him? This changes everything. In a high-tech observation room, the administrator monitors the battle. Shino Usaka's profile is on the screen, detailing her pain paralysis and Route B status. The administrator is thrilled by the three-way battle, frustrated that her senior is late to watch the show. To her, this isn't a fight, it's high-stakes entertainment. Back on the battlefield, Hibana warns Yuma that a body with no pain has its safety mechanisms shut off. Shino is capable of movements that would snap a normal person's bones. Shino contorts her body beyond natural limits, utilizing every single muscle to unleash a swing that defies human anatomy. She is a living weapon with no restraints. Malleus Maleficarum. Shino's massive chainsaw strike shatters the very ground beneath them. Hibana struggles to stay upright as more arrows pierce through Shino to reach him. Hibana is at his limit. "Sorry, Yuma. Fending these off is taking everything I've got." He desperately needs Yuma to find a breakthrough before they both fall. Yuma is gripped by fear. He knows that if Hibana gives up on being allies, he'll die instantly. He realizes he can't just be protected anymore. He has to contribute. Internal panic sets in as Yuma feels like he can't move from this spot. But with Hibana acting as his only shield, he has to force himself to find an opening to win. Suddenly, a realization hits Yuma. His eyes widen as he starts to decode the strange relationship between the chainsaw girl and the marksman. He thinks he's found it. Yuma starts shouting questions at Shino, testing his theories. Is he her boyfriend? Her father? Her friend? He's looking for the one word that will break her rhythm. "Little brother." Yuma shouts, and the reaction on Shino's face confirms his suspicion. The coordination wasn't a routine, it was a deep, familial bond. Hibana is shocked. They're siblings? Yuma explains that Shino's reckless style is only possible because she knows Soda will never let her die, and vice versa. Yuma recalls how Shino was protecting the crossbowman above, acting as a human shield for her brother. He tells Hibana to keep a close eye on their room number, 206. A chilling glimpse into the past reveals the tragic origin of Shino Usaka's condition. Confined to a hospital bed, she remains eerily still as medical staff discuss the reality of her pain paralysis, a defensive mechanism her brain developed to survive years of relentless, chronic abuse from her own parents. This trauma didn't just numb her body. It began to hollow out her soul, leaving her drifting through a world she could no longer feel. Amidst this void, her younger brother, Sota, became her only anchor to reality, a connection that would be pushed to its breaking point as they faced a cruel society that offered no mercy. In a poignant flashback, we see Shino Usaka in her school days, already carrying the scars of chronic abuse. Her younger brother, Sota, looks on with concern, but even then, Shino's heart was already turning numb to the world around her. Shino's life at school was no escape from the pain. Her peers, aware of her strange condition, decided to test her, treating her lack of sensation like a circus freak show. Sota could only watch, helpless and terrified. A cruel bully smiles as he holds up a thumbtack, intending to see just how much no pain really meant. Sota tries to intervene, suggesting his sister's shoes are making a weird sound to get her to stop, but the bullies aren't finished. Shino walks away, seemingly unfazed, but the tacks embedded in her shoe tell a different story. To her, the physical injury was nothing compared to the annoying persistence of the world trying to break her. One day, Shino finds Sota being brutally beaten by the same bullies. They mock him, calling him a siscon for always trying to protect her. Sota, bloodied and broken, still begs them to never touch his sister again. Shino watches, her eyes wide and Viohan. This was the moment she realized that if she didn't feel pain, she was the only one who could truly stand between the world and the person she loved most. She left the bullies broken on the ground. Sota, barely conscious, tries to apologize, but Shino just repeats her mantra. She doesn't want him dragged into her darkness. But they were already bound by blood and suffering. The reason it looks like you're in pain is because it is painful, she thinks, looking at her own bloodied hand. She had become a shield that could no longer feel the blows it was taking. Back in the present, Shino tries to mock Yuma Chigami's deduction. She calls Sota a massive nuisance, denying that he's precious to her at all. But her aggressive posture suggests she's hiding a deep-seated fear. Yuma doesn't buy it. "You're a terrible liar," he shouts, charging straight toward the chainsaw-wielding girl. He knows he can't afford to die, not when he has so much left to prove. Najiharu Hibana is stunned. "Wait, what are you doing?" he yells, thinking Yuma is committing suicide by running into the line of fire. But Yuma has a plan, and it involves the very bond Shino just denied. Yuma's logic is sound. The more Sota treasures his sister, the more impossible it is for him to take the shot. Sota knows that if he fires now, he risks hitting Shino in the chaos. He's paralyzed by his own love. Yuma reaches for the weapon Loki gave him. If Sota won't shoot, then the advantage shifts to them. Hibana realizes the gamble Yuma is taking and prepares to support him. "Throw it over here, Yuma," Hibana shouts, engaging Shino once more. If he can get his hands on that weapon, he can fend off the arrows while dealing damage to the chainsaw-wielding sister. But Yuma's face is contorted with a different kind of pain. "I don't want to kill them," he thinks. He sees them not as monsters, but as siblings looking out for each other, just as broken as he is. Memories of Keed flood his mind. Her smile was as light in the darkness, and the promise of seeing her again is the only thing keeping his humanity intact. He refuses to become a murderer. "I have to live." Yuma's determination peaks. He's not just fighting for himself anymore. He's fighting for the soul he promised to keep clean for Keed. He charges forward with newfound resolve. Meanwhile, in the observation room, the senior finally arrives. The administrator is excited, noting that the battle between the three Route B individuals is reaching its climax. The senior watches the monitor with a cold, knowing smile. She asks if Yuma is doing well, surprising the administrator with her personal knowledge of the newcomer. The senior's gaze lingers on Yuma's struggling form. "Is Yuma doing well?" she asks again, her voice smooth and dangerous. It's clear she has a much deeper connection to him than anyone suspected. Then comes the chilling revelation. "After all, I'm the one who put him in a Twilight Town." The woman responsible for Yuma's hell is watching his every move, and the game has only just begun. In the midst of the chaos, Shino Usaka leans in, her voice low and steady as she gives Sota a final, chilling instruction. She tells him to empty his mind of hesitation and just focus on the target. When she makes her move, he must pull the trigger. As the battle intensifies, a sudden, sharp memory flickers through Shino's mind. She watches the spinning blade of a falling weapon, wondering why these long-buried fragments of her past are resurfacing now, just as her life hangs in the balance. Facing off against Najiharu Hibana, Shino realizes the gravity of her situation. High above the city streets, surrounded by cold concrete, she knows that one wrong move means death, but in her world, death is far from the most terrifying outcome. Her eyes, dark and heavy with trauma, reflect a grim determination. To Shino Usaka, dying is a simple escape. The true nightmare is seeing the one person she loves suffer for her mistakes. The time to end this cycle has finally come. She knows Sota is the kindest soul left in this wretched town. That's why using him as bait, forcing him into this violent hostage situation just to keep herself alive, feels like the ultimate betrayal of his spirit. Even with Sota providing cover fire from the rooftops, Najiharu Hibana proves to be a true monster of a warrior, effortlessly parrying attacks and closing the gap. Shino's survival instincts are screaming, sensing an overwhelming threat they cannot overcome with force alone. The air grows heavy with the presence of Yuma Chigami. He isn't just another prisoner. There's a cold, calculated danger radiating from him that makes even a seasoned killer like Shino hesitate. Her mind screams that this man is the most dangerous variable in the area. Cornered and desperate, Shino prepares for a final, suicidal gamble. She sparks her weapon, intending to take everyone down with her in a blaze of fire. To her, failure is no longer an option, even if the cost is her own life. Najiharu Hibana charges forward with lethal intent, calling out to his ally. He's determined to end Shino's rampage before she can pull the metaphorical pin on her final plan. Sota watches in absolute horror as the battle reaches its boiling point. He sees his sister preparing for the unthinkable, and for a moment, time seems to freeze in his sight. "Don't do it, sister." Sota's voice cracks with desperation, but Shino's mind has already drifted away. As she prepares to die, her life begins to flash before her eyes, a long, brutal record of pain and survival. She remembers a childhood defined by the sound of heavy footsteps and the sting of blows. Her parents were monsters who beat her every day, forcing her to steal just to satisfy their habits. Back then, she almost hated Sota for always hiding behind her, making her the primary target for their rage. School offered no sanctuary either. The other children sensed her numbness and used it as an excuse for cruelty, throwing things at her just to see if she would finally react. Shino learned early on to simply stop caring about the pain. The abuse at home grew more grotesque by the day. When her father saw her indifference, he would strike harder, calling her disgusting for her lack of emotion. Even when she coughed up a broken tooth, her only thought was that she finally had a cavity out of her way. Living among the trash of their apartment, Shino stared out the window, wondering if falling from such a height would finally be enough to end the hunger and the isolation. She questioned if being different from everyone else was simply too heavy a burden to carry. They had nothing but each other and cheap cup ramen to share in the dark. It was a bleak, hollow existence where survival was the only goal and joy was a foreign concept. But everything changed the day she realized Sota was the only one who truly felt her pain. When he cried for her, it was the first time in years Shino felt a spark of something real, a connection that made the suffering worth it. Seeing Sota smile for the first time was her salvation. In that moment, Shino found her purpose. She would endure every blow, every injury, and every ounce of misery just to keep that small light in his eyes from going out. Back in the present, that same fierce resolve burns in her eyes. She wasn't born to be a victim. She was given this broken, unfeeling body for the sole purpose of protecting Sota until the very end. She prepares to ignite her final strike. Run, Hibana. It's a suicide bomb. Yuma Chigami realizes the danger a split second too late. He sees Shino's plan unfolding and screams for his ally to clear the area before the gasoline ignites. Amidst the smoke and gunfire, Shino's heart aches for the brother she's about to leave behind. She screams his name one last time, a final farewell before she plunges them all into the abyss. But as the flames fail to rise, Shino looks at the flask in her hand and then at the man before her. For the first time, her numbness is replaced by a genuine smile. She thanks him, not for the mercy, but for finally letting her feel the pain of a failed gamble. Soda's desperate pleas finally reach her as the tension breaks. Shino whispers a soft apology to her brother, realizing that her path of destruction has come to a sudden, unexpected halt. Shino throws the useless flask aside, the metal clattering against the cold pavement. In that single, echoing sound, she makes a choice that will change their lives forever. Instead of leading them all to the grave, she chooses a path toward a new, uncertain alliance, turning her back on the explosion that never was. As Shino walks away from the brink of her own destruction, she leaves behind a suffocating silence. Soda is left standing there, his body trembling as he struggles to process the sudden shift in his sister's spirit. The cycle of violence has finally been broken, but the crushing weight of his guilt and their shared trauma still hangs heavy in the quiet air of Twilight Town. Soda collapses under the unbearable weight of the moment. Clutching his crossbow with trembling hands, he breaks down in tears, the agonizing truth echoing through his mind. He can't do it. To kill the one person who has been his shield against the world is a line he simply cannot cross. Shino Usaka watches him, her voice barely a whisper as she calls his name, seeing the raw pain of a brother who would rather die than live in a world where he was the one to take her life. This moment of pure, tragic humanity is what finally shatters the cycle of violence between them. Soda, the timid young sniper hiding in the shadows, lets out a gut-wrenching scream as the pressure of the fight finally breaks him. Amidst the chaos, an arrow whistles past Yuma Chigami's head, but the tactical genius doesn't even flinch, his eyes fixed on the unfolding trap. The tension in the air is thick enough to cut. Najihiro Hibana grips his sword, standing ready alongside Yuma, while Shino Usaka, a girl who looks like a twisted doll with a lethal chainsaw, stares them down. They're standing in a strange liquid, and the stakes have never been higher. Realization hits them like a physical blow. That smell, it's gasoline. Yuma's mind races as he connects the dots. The sparks from Shino's chainsaw weren't just for show. She's been setting the stage for a massive explosion all along. Shino raises her buzzing weapon high, her eyes vacant and terrifying. She isn't just looking for a win. She's committing to a suicide bombing. In this hellish town, she's decided that taking everyone to the grave with her is the only way out. Look at that face. Pure, desperate madness. Shino's sacrifice isn't for herself, but for the one person she still loves, her brother, Soda. To protect him, she's willing to burn everything, including her own flesh and bone, to the ground. The chainsaw slams into the liquid-soaked ground, a roar of metal on stone that should have triggered a fiery inferno. Shino waits for the blast, for the darkness to finally take her, but the explosion she expected never comes. No fire. No explosion. Shino is left frozen in shock, her world crumbling as she gasps out a single word. Why? While she gambled everything on death, Yuma Chigami was already 10 steps ahead, his tactical brilliance once again turning the tide. Shino Osaka, a girl with bandages and a wild spirit, frantically strikes her chainsaw against the ground. She's trying to spark a massive explosion with the gasoline she spread, but strangely, nothing is catching fire. Frustration boils over as Shino realizes her suicide mission is failing. She glares at Yuma Chigami, wondering if she hasn't done enough or if this black-haired boy has somehow outsmarted her. "You did something, didn't you?" she screams. Yuma stands his ground, his eyes fixed on the girl who's betting her entire life on a single spark that just won't come. Yuma's voice cracks with desperation as he shouts for her to stop. He doesn't want another death on his hands, but in Twilight Town, mercy is a rare and dangerous thing. Shino's mind races. She knows Yuma must have done something to the gasoline, just like the other prisoner with the purple hair did. She decides she has to take him down before she can figure out his trick. From a distance, her brother Soda watches through his scope. He sees the perfect opening. With no one left to block his arrows, he has a clear shot at Yuma. Soda's hands tremble, but his resolve is firm. He doesn't understand why the explosion failed, but he knows one thing. He has to protect his sister at any cost. The battlefield is a blur of motion. As Shino lunges, Yuma spots the glint of an incoming arrow. It's a gamble of life and death, and he's betting everything on his reflexes. I can dodge this. Yuma thinks, his body moving almost on instinct. The arrow whistles past, missing him by a hair's breadth, leaving Shino completely stunned. Soda screams out in horror as he sees his sister's attack fail yet again. Yuma's movements are inhuman, dodging a point-blank shot that should have been a certain kill. Shino swings her heavy chainsaw, but Yuma is already gone. She's left gasping, her body reaching its limit as she realizes her opponent is far more than he seems. Everything falls apart for Shino. Her plan is ruined, her brother's arrows are spent, and now Najihiro Hibana appears like a ghost, his blade at her throat. "Freeze," he commands coldly. Soda tries to aim his crossbow at Hibana, but the blonde swordsman doesn't flinch. He respects Yuma's decision not to kill, but his priority is clear. Any more resistance, and Shino dies. The air turns cold as Hibana stares down Soda. "If you take one more step with that look in your eyes, I'll kill you," he warns, and for the first time, the siblings feel the true weight of death. Shino looks at Yuma and sees something terrifying. Despite his calm demeanor, he radiates a presence that feels like the very silhouette of the Reaper itself. Every move she makes feels destined to fail. In Shino's vision, Yuma is surrounded by a procession of death. She waits for the final blow, but it never comes. Instead, Yuma's voice breaks through the darkness with a gentle promise. "I want you to join us," Yuma says. Shino can't believe her ears. Why would he offer an alliance to the person who just tried to blow him up? Yuma's mind drifts back to a painful memory. Seeing Shino's self-destructive resolve reminds him of someone he once knew, someone who also put others before herself. He thinks of Keed, the person who meant the world to him. She was just like Shino, a light in the darkness, and the reason he refuses to become a monster in this city of sin. A flashback shows a building engulfed in flames. That was the day his life was saved, and the day he swore to never let another life be wasted if he could help it. Yuma reveals the dark truth of Twilight Town. The death row inmates aren't just dying. They're being killed intentionally as part of a twisted game. He refuses to be a pawn in their plan. To show his sincerity, Yuma drops his knife. He wants to be able to look Keed in the eye when he finally escapes this place. And he can't do that if his hands are stained with innocent blood. Even with an arrow still lodged in his back, Yuma stands tall. He's willing to take the hit if it means reaching through the wall Shino has built around her heart. With tears and blood on his face, Yuma makes one final plea. "Believe in me and become our ally." He's offering them a path out of the cycle of hatred, but the choice is theirs. A flood of painful memories hits Shino. The horrific abuse they suffered from predators who saw them as nothing but tools. Yuma's kindness is so alien that it's almost scary, and Soda can only watch, terrified for his sister's safety. The tension is suffocating. Shino Osaka, a girl with manic eyes and stitches across her mouth, screams in desperation. She's convinced Yuma Chigami is just another predator in this town, threatening her with the most vile intentions. To her, Yuma is the scariest person there right now, but he remains eerily calm. The fight is finally over. Shino collapses, the adrenaline fading to reveal the true extent of her wounds. "We've lost," she whispers, dropping her guard and choosing to place her fragile trust in this strange boy's mercy. Despite the threats, Yuma begins to walk away. He admits that handing a weapon to an enemy is completely ridiculous, but he has a plan. He's not here to die. He's here to change the rules of the game. The new group stands together: Yuma, Hibana, Shino, and Soda. They exchange names, a small act of humanity in this wasteland. They're allies now, even if Shino is still desperately curious about how Yuma managed to survive her trap. The dust finally settles as the group introduces themselves. Shino and her brother Soda, a timid boy in a beanie, stand alongside Najihiro Hibana and Yuma. They are allies now, but Shino is still reeling. She demands to know the secret. How did he handle the gas and dodge that lethal arrow? As they walk, Yuma begins to explain his tactical genius. He knew about the gasoline from the very start, ever since he saw Shino driving that engine-powered chainsaw. He's always observing, always planning several steps ahead. Yuma's eyes sharpen as he begins his explanation. It started with a simple observation. The engine Shino was driving confirmed one thing: the existence of gasoline in this area. In a world of chaos, logic is his greatest weapon. He reveals his secret weapon, a simple plastic bottle. Using the water Loki gave him earlier, he had used a knife to poke holes in the bottle, quietly soaking the ground while Shino was distracted by her own rage. He reveals this secret weapon, a simple plastic bottle with holes poked in it. Shino and Soda are stunned. They were prepared for a grand explosion, but Yuma defeated them with nothing more than a few holes and some water. Most of what was under you was actually water, Yuma explains with a smirk. Modern gasoline is refined to be hard to ignite, and by diluting it with water, he ensured that her chainsaw sparks wouldn't be enough to cause an explosion. Yuma explains the science of it. Real life isn't like the movies. Even at a gas station, a cigarette won't just ignite a pool of gas. It usually just goes out. By splashing water, he ensured the temperature stayed low enough to prevent Shino's chainsaw from starting a firestorm. Shino and Soda are speechless. Yuma even breaks down the crossbow dodge. It was a calculated gamble based on forcing Soda into a predictable firing line by pretending to attack. He's been manipulating the entire battlefield from the beginning. But then comes the real question: the arrow. A crossbow bolt travels at a staggering 250 kilometers per hour. Deflecting it requires superhuman reflexes, something Yuma doesn't claim to have. So how did he survive? In that split second, I created a situation where you had no choice but to shoot at me. Yuma's explanation makes Shino realize just how completely they were outclassed. It wasn't luck, it was pure, cold strategy that saved them all. He didn't just react. He manipulated the entire scene. Yuma intentionally created a situation where Soda had no choice but to shoot at a specific moment and angle. He wasn't just dodging an arrow. He was directing it. It was a total gamble, controlling the position and the timing of a shot. Yuma bet his life that Soda wouldn't want to hit his own sister, and that he could predict the exact path of the bolt. Against all odds, the gamble paid off. I didn't want to kill anyone. Yuma's smile is weary but sincere. Shino realizes that if he hadn't stopped her, she and her brother would be nothing but ash right now. This boy didn't just defeat them, he saved them. Shino stares at him, her heart hammering. If Yuma hadn't stopped her, she would have died in a useless explosion. She asks him if he's serious about his no-killing rule. In a town this brutal, she can't fathom how he expects to survive without shedding blood. Shino looks at Yuma and sees it again, the terrifying, spectral Reaper. But this time, she understands a truth. Yuma's Reaper isn't looking at the inmates. It's looking past them, with its sights set on the town itself. Yuma just smiles, but to Shino, he looks terrifying. Behind his gentle face, she sees a vision of Reapers, monstrous shadows of death. She realizes Yuma isn't just looking at the inmates. He's looking at something much further, something that might just tear this whole town apart. The four of them walk together through the desolate streets, a motley crew of prisoners ready to tear down the rules. Yuma Chigami is no longer just a victim. He is the Reaper who will kill Twilight Town. After the intense battle, Yuma Chigami stands before a massive disposal unit. He drops Nairi's heavy axe onto the conveyor belt, watching it move toward destruction. Najiharu Hibana watches closely, asking if he's truly sure about getting rid of such a weapon. In this town, every tool can be the difference between life and death. Yuma explains his reasoning calmly despite his injuries. The axe is too heavy at 2 kilograms, and even their skilled ally can't swing it effectively. Considering the constant risk of theft in Twilight Town, it's better to dispose of it here than let it fall into the wrong hands. His analytical mind is already calculating their next move. The group's immediate priority shifts to survival. Shino Osaka is injured, and her stomach wound desperately needs stitches. They discuss finding a shop run by someone called Chef to get sewing supplies. Despite the dark atmosphere, there's a fragile sense of cooperation forming between these former enemies. Treatment in Twilight Town is a luxury most can't afford. Surgical kits cost a staggering 150 kilos, a price Najiharu Hibana has never actually paid. But Yuma has the currency now, earned from the brutal reality of killing Nairi. They need to find a secure place quickly to perform the necessary treatment. When Yuma asks about their living quarters, the reality of the town's hierarchy becomes clear. Najiharu Hibana reveals that they don't actually have a key to their own rooms. They've been forced to take turns sleeping in the open, a grueling way to survive in such a hostile environment. Najiharu explains the brutal system of the town. There are only 96 solitary cell keys in all of Twilight Town, designed so the strong repeatedly steal them from the weak. It's a never-ending cycle of violence where a simple key represents the ultimate status and safety. Those who hold these keys are at the top of the food chain, the true monsters of this 5-year-old prison. Even Najiharu Hibana, with his laid-back personality, is one of those dangerous individuals. The town rewards ruthlessness, and the corpses piled up are a testament to that history. A moment of realization hits Yuma. He holds up the key he took from Nairi, marked F5. If it's Nairi's room, there might be exactly what they need inside, a needle and thread. This small piece of metal suddenly becomes their most valuable asset for saving Shino Osaka. Yuma hesitates, worried about running into other teams while they move. In a place where strength in numbers is everything, being caught in the open is a death sentence. But Najiharu Hibana is surprisingly confident, believing they won't encounter a large group out of nowhere. His quick answer leaves Yuma slightly unsettled. Najiharu begins to recount the dark history of Twilight Town's establishment 5 years ago. He speaks of rumors he's heard about the early days, back when the rules were still being written in blood. Yuma listens intently, realizing how little he truly knows about this place. He describes the chaos when 1,500 death row inmates and lifers were first shoved into the town. It was way over capacity, a powder keg waiting to explode. In that survival of the fittest environment, one specific team rose to power before anyone else. That team was the Yakuza. Making up about 10% of the prison population, nearly 150 of them try to take absolute control through unity and cunning. They were a formidable force, seemingly destined to rule the town from the shadows. But the reaction from the other inmates was swift and incredibly violent. The Yakuza were wiped out in an instant, not completely annihilated, but crushed so thoroughly that the entire town learned a lesson that day. Unity could be a weakness if it made you a target. The lesson was simple. If your power grows too large and you become a common enemy to the residents, you get crushed. The town's population acts as a collective force against anyone trying to claim absolute dominance. In Twilight Town, being too prominent is a fatal mistake. Since then, the number of people walking around in large groups has plummeted. Teams stay hidden in the shadows now, moving in small groups of 2 or 3. You never know how many people are actually lurking nearby, waiting for the right moment to strike. Najiharu delivers a chilling warning. Moving in small numbers isn't dangerous unless you fail to avoid others. He points out that you might think you're attacking a small snake, only for a dragon to emerge from the shadows. In this town, appearances are always deceiving. Seeing Yuma's weakened state, Najaharu offers to give him a piggyback ride to speed them up. Yuma, ever the stoic, immediately declines, though his body seems to be reaching its limit. The toll of the recent battle is clearly weighing on him. Suddenly, Yuma's legs give out. He stumbles, the blood loss finally catching up with him. The world blurs as he tries to maintain his composure, but his physical exhaustion is undeniable. They are out of time and need to find safety immediately. Najaharu doesn't take no for an answer this time, hoisting Yuma onto his back. He notes that Yuma has lost far too much blood to think straight. As they hurry toward Nairi's room, Yuma's mind is clouded, but a nagging sense of unease begins to take root. Even as his consciousness fades, Yuma can't shake the feeling that something is deeply wrong about Najaharu Habana. This situation, the help, the information, it all feels off. He stares at the back of his ally's head, wondering what secrets are being kept from him. Unknown to the group, they are being watched. From a nearby alley, a figure records their every move with a handheld video camera. This is Ko Kajura, a new and dangerous player in the town. He watches them with a bored, almost clinical detachment. Ko Kajura is introduced, a member of the notorious Yen organization. With a sentence of 74 years for 3 counts of murder, he is a seasoned killer. He complains about the hassle of his current mission, clearly uninterested in anything but his own amusement. Ko's recording is interrupted by a group of 3 thugs who have found him. They're starving and looking for an easy target, unaware of the monster they've just cornered. Ko sighs, more annoyed by the distraction than the threat they pose. Ko Kajura remains unfazed by the thugs, casually reporting the nuisance to Lily over his communicator. He's ready to wrap this up quickly for a meal, a dangerous predator disguised as a bored observer, marking the arrival of a much larger threat to the town. Meanwhile, as Najaharu Habana carries the fading Yuma through the corridors, the boy's mind begins to stir with a chilling recognition. Among the shadows of this town, he's realized he knows more than he let on, a realization that centers around one specific, terrifying name. As Najaharu Habana carries him, Yuma Chigami brings up a name that sends a chill through the air, Dayton. He only remembers seeing 4 of them, but the weight of that name clearly bothers him. Yuma knows he's heard it somewhere before, and in a place like Twilight Town, forgotten names usually carry a heavy price. Yuma's mind races, his eyes wide as he tries to piece together the fragments of his memory. This is Twilight Town, a place where legends and nightmares become reality. Meanwhile, we get a glimpse of Ko Kajura, the bored assassin, who is about to show just how dangerous he truly is. Back in the alley, the fight is already over. Ko Kajura stands over the defeated thugs, complaining that it was a waste of his time. He calls out to his teammates, telling them it's finished and asking why they even bothered calling him for something so trivial. The power gap in this town is starting to reveal itself. The mood shifts instantly as a blindfolded figure speaks. Ko Kajura, usually so arrogant, stops in his tracks. The mastermind appreciates Ko's quick actions, but has other intentions. He turns his attention to the surviving thugs, his presence alone commanding the dark alleyway. The mysterious leader delivers a cold lesson. In Twilight Town, the most important thing isn't raw power, it's information. He stands over the groveling thugs, demanding answers. To him, these men are nothing more than potential sources of data, to be squeezed and then discarded. Back with Yuma, the revelation finally hits him. Dayton, the name belongs to a group of terrorists who committed unthinkable crimes outside of Twilight Town. They were responsible for several high-profile killings, including that of the Prime Minister. These aren't just prisoners. They're monsters who tried to destabilize a nation. The leader of this terrifying group is Hazuki Mizukichi, a man whose reputation precedes him even in this lawless hellscape. He is a blind death row inmate and the only person in Japan sentenced to death for the crime of insurrection. His calm, almost serene smile hides a mind capable of orchestrating total chaos. Hazuki Mizukichi makes an offer that most in Twilight Town would kill for. He holds up a solitary cell key, a symbol of ultimate security, and offers it to the thugs in exchange for information. He wants to know anything and everything about their common enemies. To him, a key is a small price to pay for the right knowledge. Desperate to survive, the thugs begin to spill everything they know. They mention Hibana's room and claim that all her previous comrades are dead. But Hazuki Mizuki's smile doesn't waver. He tells them to stop lying, his voice quiet but filled with an absolute, terrifying certainty. In an instant, the negotiation turns into a slaughter. Kokajura moves with blinding speed, decapitating one of the thugs who dared to lie to his leader. The brutal execution serves as a reminder that in Hazuki's presence, deceit is the fastest way to meet the executioner's blade. Hazuki reveals the secret behind his perception. In exchange for his sight, he has developed a sense that can pierce through any deception. He can literally sense lies. To him, the world of sound and vibration is more honest than the world of sight. He demands the remaining thugs spit out the real information. The full strength of Dayton stands together, a nightmare collection of Death Row's finest. Kokajura and the other high-ranking members wait for their leader's next command. Japan's strongest terrorist organization hasn't just come to Twilight Town to survive. They've come to conquer it. Hazuki Mizuki has his sights set on one person, Najiharu Hibana. He knows Hibana possesses information that even Dayton lacks. The rest of the team listens as their leader outlines the next phase of their plan. The hunt for the Lang Cock and his group has officially begun. Transitioning back to Najiharu Hibana and Yuma Chigami, the former explains his history with the terrorists. Dayton once tried to recruit him, but Hibana found them so annoying that he slashed one of their members' faces and simply walked away. Yuma is stunned that his ally would be so reckless with such a dangerous group. Yuma's analytical mind immediately assesses the danger. If a group as organized and lethal as Dayton is truly in Twilight Town, their survival rate has just plummeted. He realizes that an inevitable clash with this new enemy is looming on the horizon, whether they are ready or not. The group finally reaches their destination, Block F, the solitary cell that once belonged to Michiya Nairi. Najiharu Hibana checks on Yuma, who is still struggling. They need to get inside quickly to tend to their wounds and plan their next move in the safety of the room Yuma won with his own hands. They step inside Nairi's room, and it's not what they expected. The cell is surprisingly clean, but it's dominated by a grotesque mural drawn on the wall, a crude, terrifying face that seems to mock them. It's a stark reminder of the insanity of the man who lived here before them. Shino Osaka and Soda react with pure disgust to the hygiene of the previous occupant. Shino remarks that she could never date someone with such disturbing tastes. Even in this high-tension situation, the siblings' banter provides a momentary, dark distraction from their grim reality. Yuma stands silently, staring at the unsettling drawing. His mind wanders back to his fight with Michiya Nairi. He can't help but wonder what the man was thinking when he drew this, and a heavy weight of regret settles in his chest. Perhaps if he had been better, he wouldn't have had to take a life. Najiharu Hibana snaps him out of his reverie. He prepares the sewing supplies, his expression turning cold and cynical. He remarks that in Twilight Town, a life isn't that big of a deal. They're all just killing strangers to survive. It's a harsh worldview that clashes with Yuma's growing internal conflict. With a sadistic grin, Najiharu prepares to treat Yuma's wounds. He gleefully explains that he'll have to cut the skin to remove the arrow and then stitch it all up, all without anesthesia. Shino Osaka watches in horror, calling him a total sadist as he prepares to perform the brutal surgery. As the group settles in Block F, the scene shifts to a different part of the prison. We see a close-up of the door to solitary cell J2. In Twilight Town, every room has a story, and some are far darker than others. Someone is watching, and their gaze is fixed on the newcomers. Inside a surveillance room, members of Dayton are analyzing their targets. They look at profiles of Shino and Soda Osaka, noting that they are siblings. Kokajura and a blonde woman discuss the prisoners, their conversation casual and cruel as they pick apart the lives of those they intend to hunt. Kokajura makes a bitter remark about the siblings, but his leader silences him. Hazuki Mizuki stands before the screen, his blind eyes fixed on the image of Najihara Hibana. He tells his team that the siblings don't matter. They just need to remember and focus on this one man. The mastermind's obsession is clear. While the others are mere obstacles, Najihara Hibana is the key to whatever larger game Dayton is playing. As the screen flickers in the dark room, the tension for the coming confrontation reaches its breaking point. The hunter has chosen his prey. In the dark heart of Twilight Town, the terrorist organization known as Dayton has set its sights on a new prize. Hazuki Mizuki, their blind but visionary leader, knows that Najihara Hibana possesses information vital to escaping this prison. He understands that Hibana's strength makes force a difficult option, so a more cunning approach is required. To Mizuki, both Hibana and his secrets are essential for their grand design. Kokajura and another member of the group, Yui, watch the newcomers from their hidden vantage point. Ko is visibly irritated, finding the presence of the black-haired guy, Yuma Chigami, to be an annoying distraction. As Yui teases Ko about his type, the tension within the Dayton group remains high, focused on the pawns they are about to move. The screen focuses on Yuma Chigami. To the terrorists, he is a curiosity, a newcomer who has somehow managed to gain the protection and interest of Najihara Hibana. They wonder what makes this ordinary-looking boy so special that a seasoned survivor like Hibana would choose to follow him. In Twilight Town, being noticed by the wrong people is often the first step toward a violent end. The scene shifts to Hazuki Mizuki giving orders to his team's doctor. Yui is delighted to report that the trap is set, while Mizuki prepares to use the two captured thugs for a cruel experiment. He orders the doctor to sew something onto one of them, completely indifferent to their terrified pleas. To the leaders of Dayton, human lives are nothing more than expendable components for their tactical plays. The cold, geometric layout of the solitary cells in Block F serves as the stage for the next phase of Mizuki's plan. He demands a report in 30 seconds, his precision reflecting the surgical lethality of his organization. They are ready to use their human bait to test Yuma's group and extract the information they desire. Morning arrives in the prison, but there is no relief for Yuma Chigami. He wakes up in their new safe room in agonizing pain, the reality of his injuries hitting him hard. Without painkillers or proper medical supplies, every breath is a struggle. The constant, throbbing ache kept him from sleeping a wink, a reminder of just how fragile life is in this town. Shino Osaka wakes up with a massive case of bedhead, her hair exploding in every direction as she offers a groggy good morning. Soda and the others look on, a rare moment of normalcy in their grim surroundings. Yuma, still in pain, can only manage a weak response as the group prepares for another day of survival. The group discusses their dire situation. Their clothes reek of gasoline from the previous fight, and they have no spare gear. Hunger is also setting in, a constant enemy that never sleeps. Najihara Hibana suggests they head back out to buy supplies from the chef, emphasizing that in Twilight Town, the only rules are those of necessity and survival. Yuma reflects on the terrifying reality of their environment. In a town with no doctors and no anesthesia, a simple injury carries the weight of a death sentence. A broken bone or an infection isn't just an inconvenience. It's a life-threatening crisis designed to force inmates into desperate, lethal competition with one another. To Yuma, the fear of getting hurt is the most rational emotion one can have here. The group gathers in the center of the cell to plan their next move. Yuma admits his vulnerability, his fear of being wounded again, grounding the conversation in a brutal truth. In Twilight Town, the bravest thing you can do is admit how close you are to the edge. Every choice they make now must be calculated to preserve their lives at all costs. Yuma looks at his ragtag team, his resolve hardening despite his physical pain. He makes his priority clear. He wants to minimize the risk of anyone in this room dying. It's a sentiment rarely heard in a place built on murder, but for Yuma, maintaining their collective survival is the only way forward. Shino and Soda listen, their trust in the newcomer slowly growing. The conversation turns to the immediate threat, Dayton. Yuma warns that if they encounter a team from the organization, especially one as lethal as Mizuki's, their first and only priority should be running away. He knows that against terrorists who have toppled governments, a direct confrontation would be suicidal. Retreat isn't cowardice. It's a tactic for living another day. An argument breaks out over who should go for supplies. Najihiro Habana suggests he and Soda take the no-injury group to the shop, but Shino immediately objects. She doesn't trust Najihiro, suspecting he might abandon her brother at the first sign of trouble. Her protective instincts are in full flare, highlighting the deep-seated mistrust that still exists between the group members. They eventually decide that they must all go together to reduce the chance of a successful ambush. As the group leaves the relatively safe confines of Block F, Yuma mentions there's one more thing he wanted to discuss. The scale of the prison town looms around them, a maze of concrete and shadows. They move cautiously, aware that every corner could hide a new predator waiting for their moment to strike. The silence is shattered by a strange, frantic sound. A man is sprinting toward them through the open courtyard, his movements jerky and filled with pure terror. The group stops, weapons at the ready, as they try to make sense of the bizarre figure charging in their direction. In Twilight Town, anything out of the ordinary is almost always a sign of impending danger. The man's appearance is horrifying. He's nearly naked, carrying only a heavy bag, and he moves in a weird, silent desperation. Soda and Shino are confused and repulsed, wondering what kind of inmate they've just encountered. Najihiro Habana tells Yuma to look closely, sensing that this isn't a random attack, but something far more calculated and sinister. The man gets closer, and the true horror of his condition is revealed. His mouth has been crudely sewn shut, preventing him from screaming even as tears of agony stream down his face. It's a level of cruelty that shocks even the seasoned fighters in the group. Yuma recognizes the victim. It's Hasegawa, one of the thugs Mizuki had captured earlier. The Dayton style of psychological warfare is on full display. In the distance, the silhouettes of Hazuki Mizuki and his team appear. The group immediately recognizes the blind mastermind, realization dawning that they are being ambushed exactly as Yuma feared. He gives the order to run, just as they had planned. This isn't a fight they can win out in the open, and Hasegawa is the key to a trap they haven't yet understood. The group begins their tactical retreat, with Najihiro Habana confirming that this is definitely Dayton. They flee through the alleyways, trying to put distance between themselves and the approaching terrorists. But Hasegawa continues to chase them, his frantic, muffled cries echoing against the walls as he desperately tries to reach the only people who might be able to help him. They sprint through the narrow streets, with Hasegawa still hot on their heels. Shino and Soda are focused on escape, but Yuma's mind is working overtime. He looks back at the terrified man chasing them, his heart hammering against his ribs. He's starting to see the pieces of the puzzle, and the picture they form is utterly repulsive. Yuma stops, a realization hitting him that halts his escape. If they just keep running, this man, Hasegawa, is going to die. Najihiro and Shino are shocked by his sudden hesitation, shouting for him to keep moving. But Yuma's conviction is starting to override his fear. He's already seen enough death in this town, and his conscience won't let him abandon someone to such a gruesome fate without a fight. Yuma's inner voice screams out against the apathy of the prison. He refuses to believe that life is cheap, even in a place like this. He sees that Hasegawa is running toward them because he thinks there's a chance he'll be saved if he just reaches them in time. Yuma's observation skills go into overdrive, noting that Hasegawa hasn't thrown the bag away, not because he's holding on to it, but because he can't. Looking at Hasegawa's exposed back, the horrifying truth becomes clear. The bag isn't being carried. It's probably sewn onto his back. The medical brutality of Mizuki's doctor has turned a living human being into a delivery system for something far more lethal. The group watches in frozen horror as the man continues his desperate, doomed run toward them. Yuma's mind completes the final, terrifying logical jump. A bag sewn onto a man's back, a mouth stitched shut to stifle warnings, and a victim whose panic is a countdown in itself. There's only one conclusion. Hasegawa is a living, breathing bomb about to detonate. Mizuki hasn't sent an attacker. He sent an expendable human timer, a trap designed to wipe them out in a single, heartless instant. Yuma's face contorts with rage as the calculated cruelty of Dayton sinks in. They've turned a human life into a mere vessel for an explosion. This is how those scumbags operate, with an absolute disregard for anything resembling humanity. But as the gap closes, the luxury of fear vanishes, replaced by the cold, hard necessity of a split-second gamble for survival. Time is a luxury Yuma doesn't have. He quickly calculates the distance. Staying away gives him 10 seconds, but moving in closer buys him only 5. Despite the risk, he chooses the latter, lunging forward to cut the bag off Hasegawa's back. It's a gamble with his life on the line. As he struggles, Yuma's words are sharp and biting. He shouts at the terrified Hasegawa, calling him out as a death row inmate and telling him to stay quiet and repent for his victims. It's a harsh way to say hold still, but in this hellish town, empathy is often delivered through a filter of brutality. The situation turns dire as the clock in Yuma's head continues to tick. The strap of the bag and the thread used to sew it onto Hasegawa's skin are far tougher than he anticipated. His gut tells him the explosion is only seconds away, and his knife isn't working fast enough. Panicked sweat pours down his face as he realizes the sheer number of stitches holding the bomb in place. I won't make it. The thought echoes in Yuma's mind as the reality of failure sets in. His eyes are wide with the terror of imminent death. Just then, a familiar voice cuts through his panic. Najiharu Abana is here, and he isn't about to let his new ally go up in smoke. Najiharu Hibana moves with a fluid, terrifying grace, pulling Yuma away from the human bomb. He tells Yuma to move, his hand already on the hilt of his blade. Where Yuma's knife failed, Najiharu's sword will provide a more decisive solution. His calm demeanor in the face of death is as unsettling as it is impressive. With a single, precise stroke, Najiharu Hibana slashes through the air. He tells Hasegawa to bear with the pain as he cuts not just the bag, but the very skin it was sewn into. It's a brutal necessity to save everyone's life. The bag falls loose, but they still need to get it far away and quickly. Najiharu's voice booms across the courtyard, calling out to Soda. He gives the order to shoot, his timing calculated to the millisecond. On the other side, the young boy with the beanie, Soda, is ready. This is the moment their teamwork will either save them or bury them. Soda pulls the trigger of his crossbow. The bolt flies true, pinning the falling bomb bag and carrying it through the air away from the group. Hasegawa collapses to the ground, safe for now, as the lethal cargo is propelled far into the distance. It was a perfect, desperate play made in the face of absolute destruction. A massive explosion rocks the town, a fireball consuming the bag midair. The shockwave ripples through the alleyways, a violent punctuation to their successful teamwork. They managed to save a life, but the cost of that victory is the realization that they've officially crossed paths with the most dangerous organization in Twilight Town. Watching from the shadows, Hazuki Mizuki wears a haunting, blindfolded smile. He's impressed by the coordination he just witnessed, noting that Yuma has gathered a truly good team. But his words carry a dark promise. He's gained interesting information today, and he knows that an all-out confrontation with Yin is now inevitable. The game has just reached a new level of lethality. In the midst of the smoke and chaos from an explosion, a new threat emerges. This is Hazuki Mizuki, the blind leader of the terrorist organization Yin. Despite the bandages covering his eyes, his presence is overwhelming as he watches the scene unfold with a chilling smile. Hazuki looks directly towards Yuma Chigami, acknowledging the boy who managed to survive the initial blast. To Hazuki, Yuma is an unexpected variable, someone he had initially dismissed as just another corpse to be. The tension thickens as Hazuki mentions Najiharu Hibana. Yuma is confused. How does this man know about Hibana, and why does his tone sound so personal? Shino Osaka looks on in shock, realizing that their movements were being watched all along. Hazuki reveals his true goal. He wants Najiharu Hibana to join Yen. It's not just about Hibana's strength. It's about the vital information he possesses. Yuma realizes that Hibana is much more than a simple ronin. He's a target for the city's most dangerous players. Hazuki tries to play a twisted game of diplomacy. He offers a doctor to treat the wounded Soda, Shino's younger brother, but the price is Najiharu Hibana's loyalty. When it becomes clear that negotiations aren't going his way, Hazuki's tones shift from polite to cold resolve. Suddenly, the phase of the attack changes. Ko Kajura, a young and lethal assassin with striking bicolor hair, moves into action. Before anyone can react, the atmosphere shifts from a standoff to a kidnapping. Chaos erupts. In a flash of chains and shadows, Soda is snatched away. Shino screams out for her brother, her eyes wide with terror, while Yuma can only watch in horror as the boy is hauled away by the enemy's brute force. The large man, Akabumi, secures Soda and even manages to seize the boy's crossbow. Shino's rage boils over as she lunges forward with murderous intent, but Najiharu Hibana realizes the danger is far from over. With a mocking "see ya," the kidnappers leap toward the rooftop, taking Soda with them. Shino is left screaming in desperation, her heart shattering as she watches her only family being carried away by the very monster she feared. Hazuki Mizuki's isn't finished. He points a finger, reminding Hibana that a comrade's life is now the bargaining chip. Yuma is frozen, his mind racing to understand what information could possibly be worth a human life. The betrayal cuts deep when Najiharu Hibana looks down and apologizes to Shino. He seems to be refusing to trade the information for Soda's life. Shino can hardly believe it. Is their so-called ally really going to let her brother die? Hibana's gaze is cold and unwavering. He reminds them of the warning he gave before they even entered this situation. In Twilight Town, survival is a gamble where anyone could be sacrificed. Yuma and Shino are haunted by the memory of those words. A flashback reveals Hibana's pragmatic, or perhaps heartless, nature. He had made it clear that their lives were at stake and that priorities might have to shift. In the present, Yuma starts to doubt if Hibana can truly be trusted as a comrade. Shino loses control, her face twisted in a mask of pure fury as she screams at Hibana. But the swordsman doesn't flinch. His question is chilling. Do I look like I am messing around? To him, this isn't a game of emotions, it's survival. Up on the roof, Akabumi smirks. He decides the crossbow isn't enough to get what they want and prepares to escalate the violence. Yuma watches, his heart sinking as he sees Akabumi winding up for something devastating. With a roar of strength, Akabumi hurls a simple stone, but in his hands, it's a lethal projectile. Najiharu Hibana barely manages to deflect it, the impact sending sparks flying and shattering the stone into pieces. Yuma is stunned. The sheer power behind that throw was insane, like a professional athlete on steroids. In the chaos, Shino is still trying to lunge at Hibana, and Yuma has to scream at her to calm down before they're all killed. Yuma suddenly realizes the truth. Despite his cold words, Najiharu Hibana just stood in front of them and blocked that killing blow. He protected them, even while claiming he wouldn't. Hibana might have a reason for his heartless facade. Akabumi isn't done yet. He clashes with Hibana, issuing a final ultimatum. Give up the info or watch everyone die. The battle is no longer just about Soda. It's an all-out extermination if they don't comply. Hibana looks back at Yuma and Shino, his expression unreadable behind his bangs. He scoffs at their ugly bickering, questioning if they can really call themselves comrades when they can't even stand together in a crisis. Yuma looks around, realizing they are utterly surrounded. He doesn't know how many Yin members are hiding in the shadows. It's a desperate situation, and his mind is working overtime to find any possible way out. Then, Yuma remembers something. He reaches into his jacket and pulls out a small, tied bag. This is the item he took from Nairi's room, a potential game changer. If he can just use this, they might have a chance to escape the trap. He shows the bag to the others. Inside are the sharp needles he collected, and he plans to use them as makeshift caltrops. It's a low-tech solution for a high-stakes escape, but in this town, a foot injury can be a death sentence. Yuma's escape plan has one major flaw. It secures their safety, but leaves both Soda and the crossbow behind. He looks up at the roof, paralyzed by the agonizing dilemma of choosing between a clean getaway and saving his friend for the clutches of Yen. Sensing his hesitation, Najihiro Hibana looks on with cold disappointment, his words hitting like a slap to the face. "You're too soft." It's a brutal reminder that in this town, mercy is a death sentence, and it's this very softness that Soda is silently witnessing from his chains. Soda, despite being captured and chained, isn't broken. He looks directly at Yuma Chigami, his eyes sharp with an unspoken understanding. He realizes that Yuma is paralyzed by the dilemma of saving him versus escaping with the precious crossbow. In this moment of clarity, the young boy decides to take the burden of the choice upon himself. In a desperate move, Soda manages to drop the crossbow, letting it fall toward Yuma. Ko Kajura, the bicolor-haired assassin, watches the exchange with a curious tilt of the head. To the assassins of Yin, this is just a minor struggle, but for the captives, it's a lifeline thrown from the jaws of defeat. Yuma catches the weapon, his hands trembling with adrenaline. High above on the rooftop, Hazuki Mizukichi, the blindfolded leader of Yin, mocks the attempt. He knows that archery and specialized shooting require years of training, skills he believes a panicked amateur like Yuma simply doesn't possess. To Hazuki, Yuma is just a boy playing with a toy he can't hope to master. Soda's voice rings out across the courtyard, screaming for them to leave him and escape. It's a selfless plea that tears through Shino Osaka. She screams back in a hysterical refusal, her heart breaking at the thought of abandoning her only brother. Yuma is forced to hold her back, his own face contorted with the weight of the impossible decision he has to make. The psychological pressure is suffocating. Yuma knows that if Shino doesn't make it out alive, Soda's sacrifice will have been for nothing. He grits his teeth, trying to keep his emotions in check as he realizes that the only way to save anyone is to act with cold, calculated efficiency right now. Yuma tries to inject some logic into Shino's panic. He argues that Yin won't kill Soda. Not yet. The boy is a valuable hostage and a source of leverage. Shino's anger is palpable, her face twisted in a mask of grief and doubt, but Yuma doesn't have the luxury of a long explanation. He needs her to trust him, or they'll all die in this courtyard. "Please," Yuma begs, his voice cracking with the strain. He makes her understand the brutal reality. If they perish here, there will be no one left to even attempt a rescue for Soda. It's a gamble of trust in a place where trust is a death sentence. Finally, Shino relents, her eyes full of tears as she realizes the tactical necessity of their retreat. With Shino finally listening, Yuma moves with a new sense of purpose. He thanks her and turns his attention back to the crossbow. He ties the bag of needles they found in Nairi's room to a bolt. Najihiro Hibana watches from a distance as Yuma prepares his unconventional counterattack. This isn't just a retreat, it's a strategic withdrawal. Yuma takes aim and fires. The arrow doesn't head for the assassins. Instead, it arcs high into the sky, flying right over the enemy's heads. Akabumi, the large bearded mercenary, looks up in confusion, wondering what the boy thinks he's doing. To the trained killers of Yin, it looks like a pathetic miss from an amateur who can't handle the distance. But Yuma's eyes are fixed on the string still held in his hand. He knows he doesn't need specialized skills for this trick. As the arrow passes over the group, he pulls the cord. The bag, tied with a loose knot, unravels in midair, releasing its contents right above the heads of Hazuki and his men. A lethal rain descends. Hundreds of needles, each attached to a small scrap of cloth, flutter down like a swarm of angry insects. Akabumi is caught in the downpour, the sharp points pricking his skin. It's a chaotic and unexpected move that momentarily halts the legendary assassins of Yin in their tracks. Akabumi is more annoyed than hurt, brushing the needles off his head. Ow, ow. What is this? He grumbles, looking at the tiny sewing tools scattered around him. He thinks it's a pathetic attempt at an escape. But Hazuki Mizuki, with his heightened senses, raises a hand to signal his men to wait. He smells the trap that Akabumi is too dim-witted to see. To Akabumi, they're just harmless needles. He mocks Yuma, asking if he really thinks he can escape with such a childish prank. But the atmosphere changes as Hazuki steps forward, his blindfolded gaze fixed on the floor. He realizes that Yuma has turned his sewing kit into a tactical minefield. Hazuki explains the cruel genius behind the move. The scraps of cloth aren't just for drag. They ensure that the needles always land point up. These are caltrops, a weapon that has existed for over 2,000 years. If they chase Yuma now, the needles will pierce their souls. They are trapped in a dilemma: avoid the needles and lose their prey, or ignore them and suffer the consequences. In the modern world, sturdy boots might protect a soldier from such a trap. But here in Twilight Town, resources are scarce. Hazuki looks down at the field of needles, acknowledging their effectiveness. He knows that in this lawless town, a simple puncture can be a death sentence. This isn't just about pain, it's about the aftermath. Akabumi's rage flares up, and he swears to take Yuma's head despite the trap. But Hazuki remains calm, his voice cutting through the big man's anger. He explains that stepping on these needles is directly linked to death. It's not a threat. They can simply muscle through with brute force. The psychological weight of the trap is just as sharp as the needles themselves. Akabumi is confused. Are the needles poisoned? Hazuki thinks back to the source. He realizes these are the needles Michiya Nairi used on his victims. It's a chilling connection. Yuma has scavenged the tools of one monster to ward off another. Hazuki starts to realize that Yuma Chigami is a much more dangerous opponent than he first appeared. Hazuki lays out the grim reality of Twilight Town. There are no hospitals here. Even if they caught up to Yuma's group, any injury from the needles would likely lead to a fatal infection later. It's a slow, agonizing way to die. Yuma has exploited the town's greatest weakness, the lack of medical care, to create an impassable barrier. As the group flees into the distance, the narrator notes that for the sole purpose of escaping, this was the best possible move. It's a deep-laid plot leading toward death for anyone foolish enough to follow. Yuma and the others vanish from sight, leaving the Yin assassins behind in a field of sharpened steel and cloth. Yuma looks back one last time, his face a mixture of relief and haunting guilt. He promises to himself that he will save Soda. Meanwhile, Hazuki Mizuki stands still, acknowledging the name, Yuma Chigami. He admits he had initially looked down on him as just another newcomer, but now he realizes he should take this boy very seriously. The hunt has officially changed. Sequence 4 begins with a revelation of what's truly at stake. The group has made it to a safe distance, but the safe house offers little comfort. Yuma is out of breath, the adrenaline fade, leaving him exhausted. Hibana stands nearby, his kimono jacket ruffled from the flight. They've come this far, but the victory feels hollow with Soda still in enemy hands. The fragile alliance is at a breaking point. Shino Osaka turns her fury on Hibana, her face wet with sweat and tears. She demands to know what he means by safe when her brother is still a prisoner. To her, Hibana's cold. Tactical distance is a betrayal. If he has no intention of saving Soda, she declares that she can no longer consider him an ally. The argument escalates, with Shino lashing out and questioning why Hibana was so secretive with his information earlier. Yuma tries to intervene, his hands raised in a desperate attempt to keep the peace. Hibana looks away, his expression a mix of sadness and stoic resolve. He asks a haunting question. Am I the only one who thinks of us as allies? It's a moment of profound isolation for the Ronin. Yuma is caught in a whirlwind of emotional turmoil. He takes full responsibility, admitting that Soda was taken only because he hesitated to save another. Shino's screams of grief fill the air, almost masking the presence of the man they just rescued from Yen's sadistic trap. At this moment, the group is at its most vulnerable, their unity shattered by the very act of survival that brought them this far. The man at the center of this storm is Yasuhiro Hasegawa, a prisoner Yen had used as a live bomb decoy. Now free of his gag and shaking with relief, he pours out his gratitude to the boy who saved him from a fiery end. A convicted criminal sentenced to 35 years, Hasegawa's life was spared by Yuma's idealism, an idealism that Hibana is about to harshly reinforce in front of everyone. Najiharu Hibana doesn't go easy on Yasuhiro Hasegawa, the prisoner they just saved. He practically barks at the man, telling him to carve Yuma's name into his soul with gratitude. While Hasegawa is trembling and nodding in agreement, Yuma Chigami stands in the background, looking a bit awkward. He didn't save the man for the glory, but Hibana seems determined to make sure Yuma's leadership is recognized by those they help. Shino Osaka is still raw with emotion. She confronts Yuma, her voice a mix of hope and desperate skepticism. She needs to know if his earlier claim about Soda's safety was just a lie to get her to flee. Yuma meets her gaze with an eerie calm, repeating his conviction: Soda won't be killed. He's almost certain of it, and the weight of his certainty starts to pull Shino out of her panic. Yuma begins to lay out his cold, hard logic. He explains that his certainty didn't come from thin air. It formed the moment Soda dropped the crossbow. He realized then that it wasn't a coincidence that the organization Yen kidnapped Soda first. Everything they did was a calculated move, and Yuma has started to see the pattern behind their violence. He breaks it down for Shino. Yen saw Soda's incredible marksmanship as the greatest threat on the battlefield. They prioritized neutralizing him to gain tactical superiority. However, the key is what happened next, or rather what didn't happen. Even when Soda lost his weapon, none of the Yen members even discussed killing him. They didn't see him as a target to be eliminated, but as an asset to be secured. Yuma's eyes narrow as he explains the terrifying truth. Yen didn't just want Soda out of the way, they wanted him as a weapon for themselves. They had already discussed what weapons they wanted him to use before they even took him. Because of this, Soda remained completely unharmed during the abduction. To Yen, Soda isn't just a boy, he's a high-tier ability they intend to exploit. That's why Soda won't die, Yuma declares with chilling confidence. In a place as resource-starved as Twilight Town, no one in their right mind throws away a powerful weapon once they've obtained it. Soda's value to Yen is his ultimate shield. Shino listens, her mouth hanging open slightly as she realizes that Yuma's brain is operating on a level of strategic analysis she can barely comprehend. Najiharu Hibana is watching Yuma with a look that borders on awe. He wonders if it's even possible. Did this boy really analyze everyone's reactions and motives in the heat of a life-or-death battle? While everyone else was fighting for their lives, Yuma was collecting data, processing the entire scene like a living computer. It's a terrifying and brilliant realization for the Ronin. A dark, satisfied smile spreads across Hibana's face. "I'm glad I came to Twilight Town," he mutters to himself. He has found something, or someone, far more interesting than a mere escape. Shino notices his sudden, creepy shift in mood and looks at him with suspicion, but Hibana's eyes are fixed on Yuma, the newcomer, who is proving to be a tactical genius. Yuma doesn't let the praise distract him. He turns to the group, demanding their full attention. He knows why Hibana has been so cagey about his secret information, and he understands the danger involved. But he insists that saving Soda is the only priority that matters right now, and he's ready to use his theory to make it happen. The boy with the striped tracksuit addresses the tension between Shino and Hibana head-on. He realizes that Hibana's refusal to speak is a survival instinct. If the information he holds gets out, his own life is forfeit. Hibana looks away, acknowledging the truth of Yuma's words. The stakes are higher than anyone realized. Hibana isn't just being difficult. He's being hunted for a reason. Yuma's theory goes even deeper. He suggests that Hibana's information is a threat not just to himself, but to the entire Yin organization. If that secret spreads through Twilight Town, the people of Yin will be the ones in danger. This is why Hazuki Mizuki and his assassins are so desperate to capture him. It's a war of information where silence is the only weapon Hibana has left. The realization hits the group like a physical blow. If Hibana's information is powerful enough to topple Yin, it's a double-edged sword that could cause even more bloodshed. Yuma explains that by keeping it to himself, Hibana was actually protecting the rest of them from being dragged into a much larger and more lethal conflict. Shino's anger begins to fade, replaced by a grim understanding of the world they're in. In other words, everyone in Twilight Town will die if we're not careful, Yuma concludes. But there's a silver lining. Because they know Yin must have that information, their future actions are predictable. Yuma is already planning their next move, certain that he can outmaneuver the terrorists and take Soda back when they inevitably strike again. Yuma reveals another layer of his knowledge. He recognizes the faces of the Yin members from the news back on the outside. They weren't just common criminals. They were a notorious terrorist organization on the most wanted list. This confirms that the danger they face isn't just from powerful prisoners, but from professional, ideological killers who are used to operating in the shadows. The group's discussion shifts to the abnormal physical abilities shown by the Yin members. Jumping to rooftops and throwing stones with the force of professional athletes. These aren't skills anyone could just develop in a house. Yuma notes that this is fundamentally different from the Route B false charges. There is something supernatural at play in Twilight Town that enhances those who are truly dangerous. Yuma's eyes are wide with the weight of his discovery. He realizes that there are humans here with special abilities that defy common sense. And these aren't the innocents of Route B. He vows to build his next plan on this new premise. In a world where the laws of physics seem to bend for the powerful, Yuma knows he must adapt his tactical thinking to account for the impossible. The scene shifts to a high-tech observation room far removed from the grime of the prison. Keed, a senior administrator, and her veiled colleague are watching the footage of Yuma's escape. They are genuinely impressed. Very few newcomers manage to outwit an organization as lethal as Yin. Keed's colleague is curious about how she even found someone as unique as Yuma Chigami in the first place. Keed smiles as she recalls their first meeting, which she describes as a complete accident. A flashback takes us back to a bustling city on the outside. Keed, dressed in civilian clothes, had dropped some change while walking through a crowd. It seemed like a trivial event, but it was the moment Yuma's extraordinary nature was first revealed to her. In the memory, Yuma is just a regular teenager walking through the crowd. He stops to help Keed pick up her coins, but as he hands them back, he says something that stops her in her tracks. He doesn't just give them back. He gives her the exact breakdown of what she's lost. You dropped 898 yen, so you're still missing 117 yen, Yuma says calmly. Keed is speechless. In the middle of a crowded street, in the split second the coins hit the pavement, Yuma had instantly calculated the total and the deficit. This wasn't just math. It was a level of hyper-observation that bordered on the superhuman. It was the reason Keed chose him for Twilight Town. Back in the control room, Keed's colleague is stunned. The ability to grasp such precise data in a chaotic crowd is practically impossible for a normal human. Keed explains that after this contact, she had Yuma sent to Twilight Town as a Route B prisoner. She then directs her colleague to a specific study in the 2023 academic journal Cortex to explain the science behind Yuma's brain. She brings up a hypothesis proposed by Canadian neuroscientist Dr. Morris Friedman. The brain's brakes are suppressing the abilities that humans naturally possess. The theory suggests that the human brain has built-in limiters that prevent us from accessing our full potential, and that these limiters can be bypassed through targeted neurological stress. Keed shows the results of an experiment where subjects had the brakes in their frontal lobes paralyzed by magnetism. The results were startling. They could influence the probability of a device's output. Following this, Dr. Jesse Halta announced that under extreme biological stress, these neural brakes can completely shatter, allowing for the awakening of dormant powers. And the greatest biological stress a human can face is the immediate threat of death. The control room screens display a grim skull, symbolizing the final barrier that, when pushed against, forces the brain into an evolutionary leap. This is the dark core of Twilight Town's mission, pushing prisoners to the absolute brink to unlock their hidden potential. The special ability that awakens during this moment of extreme survival is called Idea. A visual of a flickering, spiritual flame represents the birth of this power. In this lethal laboratory, the Idea is the ultimate prize, and those who manage to awaken it are fundamentally changed, becoming more than just human. The term for these extraordinary individuals is Idea Holder. It's not just a label, it's a target. In the eyes of the administration, these people are the ultimate data points, biological anomalies that have managed to break through the natural limits of the human mind. The silhouette of a flame within the chest represents the volatile power that now burns within them. This is the true, dark purpose of Twilight Town, to serve as a massive observation deck for those who come into contact with death and survive. Whether they're death row inmates or innocent victims, the town watches, recording every transformation as they evolve into Idea Holders through trauma and bloodshed. It's a laboratory where the price of admission is your humanity. Keed, the senior administrator, reveals the sinister logistics of the Route B system. Simply waiting for criminals to awaken their powers wasn't efficient enough to cover all the potential Idea Holders in Japan. They needed a more proactive approach to harvest the most promising subjects from the general population. Route B is a conveyor belt for the innocent. It's a system designed to snatch civilians who have already shown signs of awakening an idea on the outside and forcibly throw them into Twilight Town on trumped-up charges. The town doesn't care about justice. It only cares about the rare potential locked inside these people's heads. There's one common thread among every Route B inmate. They have all stared death in the face long before they ever arrived here. Yuma, Shino, Hibana. Each one carries the scars of a traumatic past that cracked the breaks in their brains, making them the perfect candidates for the town's lethal experiments. Their survival wasn't luck. It was proof of their potential. The administrators currently categorize these awakened abilities into three major types. The first is enhancement, ideas that push the body's physical durability or biological functions to superhuman levels. These are the bruisers, the ones who can shrug off wounds that would kill a normal person and strike with the force of a wrecking ball. The second type is superpower, which abnormally sharpens the senses like sight or hearing. Then there's the third and most unstable type, self-destruction. These are ideas where a part of the brain's core functions simply breaks and goes out of control. It's a dangerous, high-risk mutation that can give the holder incredible power at the cost of their mental stability. Back in the safe house, Najihiro Hibana drops a bombshell on Shino. Yuma's brain is broken. It's a clinical, chilling assessment that leaves Shino stunned. Hibana isn't insulting Yuma. He's accurately diagnosing the source of the boy's terrifying analytical power. Yuma's mind isn't working like a normal human's anymore. Hibana explains that the human brain is naturally designed to automatically forget unnecessary information. License plates, random phone numbers, the subtle flicker of an eyelid. It's a safety mechanism that prevents our heads from bursting under the sheer weight of useless data. But Yuma Chigami is fundamentally different. His safety mechanism has failed. While others struggle to remember the details of the battle, Yuma stands there, his mind a whirlwind of perfectly preserved data. Every movement of the Yen assassins, every word Hazuki spoke, even the precise way Soda was being held, it's all being replayed in his head with absolute clarity. He isn't just remembering the past, he's living it. This is Yuma's specific idea, the brain's self-destruction error. He saves every single scrap of information that enters his brain. Every subtle glance, every nuance in a person's speech, every tiny twitch of a muscle. Nothing is discarded. It's a sensory overload that would kill a normal person. But for Yuma, It's a terrifying new way to see the world. The administrators call it death-sending divine play. By gathering and assembling this massive mountain of data in real time, Yuma can make future predictions with the highest possible accuracy. He isn't psychic. He's just calculating the only possible outcome based on a trillion variables. He sees the strings of fate, and he knows exactly where they lead. The air in the room is thick with high-tech calculations as Yuma's brain processes the data. He gathers the fragments of the past, the smiles of the enemies, the desperation of his friends, and assemblies them into a vision of what must happen next. This is the power that makes Yuma Chigami the most dangerous person in Twilight Town. Yuma finally speaks, addressing the group with a look of absolute, cold-blooded focus. All right, everyone, regarding our next move, first, let's give up on saving Soda. The words are like a physical blow, hanging in the air with a weight that seems to drain the light from the room. It's a declaration that no one expected from the boy who had risked everything just hours before. The chapter ends on a scream of betrayal. Shino is hysterical, her face a mask of pure shock as she yells Yuma's name. Even the unflappable Hibana is sweating, unable to reconcile the boy's words with his previous actions. Has Yuma really become the cold tactician Hibana wanted, or is this the beginning of a much deeper, more dangerous plan? The game has truly changed. Shino is absolutely livid. Chainsaw in hand, she's screaming at Yuma, unable to believe he just suggested giving up on their friend, Soda. The air is thick with her fury as the motor revs. Seeing Shino's explosive reaction, Yuma immediately drops into a full Dejiza. He begs for mercy while Hibana watches from behind, clearly caught off guard by his sudden and extreme display of submission. Yuma quickly tries to regain control of the situation. He gestures frantically, trying to get the girls to understand that his betrayal was nothing more than a front for a much bigger plan. He pulls them in close, his voice dropping to a whisper. This is it, the real operation to rescue Soda. He needs them to listen carefully, and more importantly, he needs them to trust him. Yuma explains that Hibana will need to split off and act on her own. Shino is still skeptical, her anger only barely simmering down as she tries to wrap her head around this risky solo mission. Then comes the reveal. Yuma admits he lied about giving up on Soda just to make Shino naturally angry. He knew her loud chainsaw and her screaming would act as the perfect white noise, because he's certain they're being watched. The scene shifts to a nearby room where Lily, the blindfolded man, and the young Mikage are lounging. The atmosphere is quiet, a sharp contrast to the chaos we just saw on the street. Mikage smiles, her abnormal hearing having caught every word. She reports that Hibana and the others have finished their fight, seemingly satisfied with what she's overheard. Lily senses someone at the door. With a calm invitation, he tells them to enter. Hasegawa appears, leading a group of captives into the room as the plan begins to unfold. Hibana makes her entrance, looking as cool and composed as ever. The surrounding thugs can't help but be impressed or intimidated by her undeniable presence. With a cold, steady gaze, Hibana delivers her ultimatum. She's not here to talk. She's here to join their organization, the one they call Heaven. Back on the streets, the tension has finally broken. Yuma thanks Shino for playing her part so well, while Hasegawa confirms they've successfully pinpointed the enemy's hideout. The two sit down to discuss the details. While sending Hibana into the heart of the enemy's territory is dangerous, Yuma believes it's their best chance to get Soda back. It's a classic one-stone, two-bird strategy. By sending Hibana in, she can serve as both a protector for Soda and a disruptive force from within the enemy's ranks. Yuma knows that Hibana's presence will keep the enemy off balance. As long as they are suspicious of her, their movements will be slowed, giving Yuma's team the opening they need. The goal is to force the enemy to split their attention. They'll have to choose between attacking Yuma's group or keeping an eye on the dangerous Hibana, and either way, they lose. Shino is impressed, but she has one question. How did Yuma even know someone with superhuman hearing was eavesdropping on them in the first place? Yuma thinks back to the previous encounter with Hasegawa. He realized the enemy's plan was far too tailored to his own personality, a clear sign that they had been listening to his every word. He deduced that since there were no visible bugs or people around, the enemy must have someone like Mikage, someone who could hear everything from a distance. That realization changed everything. If the enemy hears their real plan, it's game over for everyone except Hibana. That's why the fight with Shino had to be real, a performance for the ears and the walls. Shino wonders if trusting Hibana so completely is really wise. After all, she's a former death row inmate who's now surrounded by enemies who might offer her a better deal. Deep inside the enemy hideout, Hibana sits alone. She's a lone wolf in the heart of the den, her hand never far from the hilt of her sword. One wrong move, and it's all over. Yuma admits that Hibana has been hiding her past, and that trusting a criminal is a massive gamble. There's no law or logic that says this will work out. Even so, I'm putting my faith in her, Yuma says, his eyes filled with a rare conviction. He remembers the weight of her protection in the past, and for him, that bond is worth betting his entire life on. In this chaotic town, intuition is the only compass that matters. But as Yuma stands firm in his trust, the silence between them deepens, making room for the heavy secrets and painful memories they've all been hiding behind their masks. Shino opens up about her past. She came to this town because of a false accusation, but she insists that Soda is different. He's someone worth saving. Yuma listens intently, feeling the weight of her sincerity. A dark revelation hangs in the air as Hasegawa looks away. He reveals a grim secret from his past, that he even went as far as killing his own parents just to save Shino. Shino is visibly shaken by the weight of Hasegawa's sacrifice, her eyes reflecting her shock. But Yuma's resolve doesn't waver. He promises that when the time comes, he will be the one to hear the truth and save them both. Meanwhile, inside the enemy's base, Lily is leaning back, looking completely bored with the current state of affairs. He idly wonders if Hibana would like to play a bit to pass the time while they wait for Yuma to arrive. Lily questions Hibana's loyalty, asking why she follows someone like Yuma so faithfully. He mockingly asks if it's love, before dismissively laughing that love is such a boring and meaningless concept to him. Lily leans in close, claiming he can see through her like an open book. He suggests that while she might have started out approaching Yuma just to use him, she's now genuinely fallen for him, much to her silent annoyance. Lily continues to poke at Hibana's inner conflict, his voice low and taunting. He notes that while feelings might have blossomed from their time spent together, her original, darker objective hasn't simply vanished. With a knowing smirk, Lily points out the obvious. With her skills, Hibana could have easily escaped this town on her own long ago. The fact that she stays suggests her attachment to Yuma is deeper than she admits. The tension in the room is palpable as Lily continues his psychological games, his bandaged eyes somehow seeing more than anyone else. He dismisses the other's suspicions, claiming that he's the only one who can truly spot a liar. He throws out a chilling theory, his hand outstretched as if offering a deal. Is Hibana just waiting for the right moment to kill Yuma and take over whatever role Soda was supposed to play within their organization? Lily concludes his taunt, suggesting that Hibana's love for Yuma is actually clouding her judgment and slowing her down. He knows Yuma is smart enough to find the truth eventually, even if she tries to hide it. Back on the planning front, Yuma analyzes the enemy's strength with cold precision. He estimates their numbers are small, maybe around 30, concluding that they aren't an insurmountable force if they strike fast. Yuma lays out the tactical reality of their one stone, two birds plan. By sending Hibana in, they've forced the enemy to divide their attention. While the thugs are occupied with her, Yuma and Shino will lead a direct assault. High above the city, Shino looks down at the path they must take. The stakes couldn't be higher. If they fail today, Soda's fate is sealed. In the distance, Yuma's voice calls out to her, bringing her focus back to the life-or-death mission ahead. Senda Yuma and Shino are lying low. Yuma reassures her that they aren't in immediate danger of being tracked, but they don't have forever to prepare. He knows the hunters are coming. High above, the town is a grid of silence and secrets. But the observers claim that in this place, even a whisper in a closed room can't escape their reach. Their range is beyond human comprehension. Yuma's plan is as strange as it is simple. He asks Shino to find him 2 small stones. In the hands of someone like him, even a pebble can become a deadly weapon in the coming battle. In a stark, concrete bunker, the town's most dangerous elements are gathered. They are a collection of monsters, some bound, some bored, but all waiting for the order to kill. The conversation is cold and clinical. These convicts are being handled like tools. Their worth measured only by their utility in Mikage's twisted game. No one here is innocent. Meet the elite predators of Twilight Town. Minato Akitoshi, a man with a smile as sharp as his history of 32 murders, and Hamamoto Yui, a bomber who turned her life into a 160-year sentence. Mikage Hazuki watches them with a patronizing grin. To him, they are polished, finished gems, predictable and static. He's looking for something more raw, something that can still grow. Mikage's eyes are hidden, but his obsession is clear. He compares Yuma to a rough, unrefined stone. In his mind, true beauty is only revealed when a soul is ground down in the heat of combat. He sees a future where Yuma's potential finally sparkles, polished by the very violence they are about to unleash. He's not just a leader. He's a fanatical artist of human conflict. The others don't quite understand his poetic rambling. To them, it's all nonsense, like a mother watching her son fall off a bike. They just want to know when they can start the hunt. Back in the monitor room, the atmosphere is more clinical but no less tense. The staff are placing their bets. Who will win? The outcome seems obvious to most. Yuma is outmatched. One observer isn't sugarcoating it. Yuma has a 100% chance of dying. They think everyone, including Yuma himself, is underestimating just how cruel this place can be. Mikage's grin deepens as he prepares to move to the next phase. He doesn't want to lose his raw stone just yet, but first, he has to find him. He turns to the girl in the scarves. Lily, the girl whose face is barely visible beneath her hood, prepares to work. She tells the others to be quiet. Her work requires a focus that is both a gift and a heavy burden. She plugs her ears, but it's not to block out the people in the room. It's a shocking reveal. She's been holding back. The earplugs were the only thing keeping the cacophony of the city at bay. The observers are stunned. They realize she's been dampening her own power this entire time. As she removes the restriction, her awareness expands, turning the city into a soundboard. The 1,000-mile Hell Ears ability is now fully active. Every heartbeat, every gear turning, and every cry of pain across Twilight Town is being filtered through her mind at once. She hears a stabbing by the north wall, the sound of a minivan approaching, and the heartbeat of someone new. The entire town is an open book, and Lily is reading every page. She picks up Yuma's rhythm, distinct and steady. The observers are fascinated by the sheer scope of her hearing. Even the heartbeat of a specific target is clear to her. Mikage's smile says it all. This scarf girl is more than just a tracker. She's an unexpected harvest, a tool of immense power that he intends to use for his ultimate goal. She is necessary for us to leave Twilight Town, Mikage declares. His plan is finally coming together, and Lily's hearing is the key to unlocking the gates. Lily pinpoints the target. Yuma is at position 7 west, 4 north. He's still looking for stones, unaware that the observers have already closed the distance. The next pair of hunters is ready. An old man with a heavy chain and a girl with wild, feral energy are given their orders. Bring Yuma back alive. No killing allowed. Not yet. Kajura Leo and Oritadu Kazumasa, 2 lethal convicts with combined sentences exceeding a century. They are the hounds Mikage has unleashed to close the net on Yuma, cornering the raw stone from both the rooftops and the streets. Back in the control room, the tension takes a bizarrely personal turn. One of the scientists admits she'd be sad if Yuma died, dropping the bombshell that the target is actually her ex-boyfriend, a revelation that's about to spark an even stranger debate on romance. In a high-tech control room, the conversation takes a bizarre turn toward the philosophy of confessions. Apparently, being confessed to by a lame nerd is a downer, while a cool person is a boost. Meanwhile, back in the real world, Yuma isn't feeling cool at all as he collapses under the sheer weight of the ongoing battle. Kazumasa, the grizzled old man with a deadly chain scythe, towers over the wounded Yuma. High above on the rooftop, the wild-haired Kajura Leo watches with a predator's gaze. Yuma is caught in a pincer move, trapped between a seasoned veteran and an unpredictable wild card. Yuma's mind is a whirlwind of regret and survival instinct. He shouts an apology to Shino, realizing his initial plan was flawed. There's no time for a postmortem now, though. He has to find a way out of this trap before the next strike lands. With desperation in his voice, Yuma bellows a command to Shino. "Don't start that chainsaw until I give a signal." Absolutely not. He knows their only chance relies on perfect timing, and a premature move would mean certain death for both of them. Kazumasa isn't interested in their teamwork. He moves with a shocking, fluid speed, his scythe blade carving a lethal arc through the air. Yuma barely manages to brace himself as the old man prepares to end the fight then and there. The two hunters have successfully cornered Yuma and Shino between the looming school buildings. Yuma looks around, his breath hitching as he realizes the tactical nightmare they're in. He needs to lure them into the open, but the hunters aren't giving him an inch of ground. Kazumasa swings his chain with a master's precision, the metal links clashing like a death knell. He tells Yuma to put his life on the line, a redundant request, as the blade whistling past Yuma's ear is doing exactly that. One wrong move, and it's over. From her perch on the rooftop, Kajura Leo lets out a long, weary sigh. To her, this isn't a life-or-death struggle. It's just a tedious chore. Her detached indifference is a chilling contrast to the violent spectacle unfolding below her. Close up on Kajura Leo, her face the picture of absolute boredom. She mutters about how annoying everything is, her wild hair and animal-like features giving her the aura of a bored deity observing a messy, mortal squabble. She's finally deciding it's time to intervene. Kajura Leo decides she's had enough of waiting. "I'll end this quickly," she declares, and with a sudden burst of speed, she leaps from the building. Yuma looks up in terror as the blur of white hair descends on him like a meteor. Before Yuma can even finish his thought, Kajura Leo's kick slams into him with a force that shatters the air. The speed and impact are on a different level from anything he's faced so far, sending him reeling. The battlefield turns into a chaotic blur. Shino tries to swing her chainsaw, but Kajura Leo is too fast, jumping to the roof of a two-story building with a single, effortless leap. Yuma is horrified by the supernatural agility of their opponent. Kajura Leo doesn't even bother to land properly before continuing her assault. She executes a gravity-defying move, her movements so fluid they seem like she's dancing through the air. Yuma can only watch in disbelief as she prepares her next devastating blow. Another thunderous kick connects. Kajura Leo's speed is relentless, her leg a blur as it strikes Yuma with pinpoint accuracy. The impact is heavy enough to crack the pavement, leaving Yuma struggling just to keep his guard up. Kajura Leo unleashes a technique called the witch's heel. Her foot strikes like a hammer, aiming to shatter Yuma into pieces. Her calm, almost clinical tone as she delivers these brutal blows makes her feel more like a force of nature than a human opponent. Yuma and Shino are reeling from the onslaught. Kajura Leo lands gracefully, her eyes narrowed as she calls Yuma a painless idea. It's a strange philosophical taunt that seems to strike a nerve even as Yuma struggles to breathe. She's not just fighting him, she's breaking him down mentally. Kajura Leo leans in, her expression unreadable. She mentions Plato's idea, asking Yuma what his own idea is. It's a bizarre, academic turn of conversation in the middle of a war zone, leaving Yuma frustrated and confused by the riddles. Yuma can't help but feel a sense of dread as he hears these riddles. He looks at Shino, both of them lost in the hunter's strange logic. But there's no more time for questions as Kajura-Leo continues to taunt them from her position of absolute power. The respite is over as Ori-to-do Kazumasa steps back into the fray. Yuma realizes the old man has been playing with them, hiding his true intentions. He vows to get answers after he helps Soda, but first, he has to survive the scythe blade carving through the air. Ori-to-do Kazumasa swings his chain again. Yuma notices that while the scythe is dangerous, it's not as fast as the lethal arrows he faced from Soda. He can dodge, but he knows he can't get overconfident against a veteran like this. Kajura-Leo sneers at Yuma's attempts to dodge, calling him arrogant squared. The two hunters are a terrifyingly perfect team, their styles weaving together to create a trap that closes in on Yuma from every possible angle. Kajura-Leo delivers another earth-shattering kick. The sheer power she generates from such small, casual movements is mind-boggling. Yuma is barely hanging on, his defense crumbling under the weight of her constant, high-speed strikes. Yuma manages to parry a blow, but his heart sinks as he sees the attack's trajectory change mid-swing. Did he kick the chain to change its path? He thinks in shock. The level of coordination between the two hunters is unlike anything he's ever seen. This isn't just a series of lucky strikes. It's a calculated, perfectly executed combo play. Yuma realizes with mounting horror that Ori-to-do Kazumasa and Kajura-Leo aren't just fighting together. They're moving as a single, lethal entity. Every feint and blow is a deliberate setup for the next, pinning him in a corner with no hope of a counterattack. The chilling truth of their teamwork comes into focus. While Yuma and Shino hesitate to protect one another, Ori-to-do Kazumasa attacks with zero regard for his partner's safety. He strikes with lethal intent, trusting Kajura-Leo's inhuman speed to dodge the friendly fire and exploit the resulting chaos. It's a heartless, hyper-efficient system that has Yuma completely trapped in their rhythm. Cindy Yuma is trapped. The coordination between Ori-to-do Kazumasa and Kajura-Leo is suffocating, their combo play leaving him with no room to breathe. Every strike is a setup for the next. He barely avoids another lethal toss. Yuma is desperately trying to decode the signals they use. Those four-character idioms aren't just for atmosphere. They're the precise commands for their inhuman teamwork. Blood streaks Yuma's face as he narrows his eyes. He realizes that to win, he must strike at the very heart of their coordination, their intent. If he can't break their rhythm, he won't survive the next minute. A spectral monster seems to howl behind Yuma, as he focuses every fiber of his being on his memory. He calls out to Shino, his voice tight with anticipation. Shino, it's the next one. He's betting everything on one moment. He tells Shino exactly where their opponent will land. He asks her to trust him and strike that spot together. Despite her shock, Shino prepares her blade, placing her faith in her partner's strange intuition. Believe in me, he begs. The scythe whistles past his ear. If his theory about their pattern is correct, Kajura-Leo should be descending right here. He's no longer just reacting. He's predicting their every move. Kajura-Leo is caught off guard. Yuma correctly identified that the idiom Kendu-Jurai was the cue for their timing. But more importantly, he read the direction Oritoto's preliminary movement gave away. Their secret language has been cracked. Yuma explains that their signals were simple for a reason. In the chaos of battle, complex orders are useless. But that simplicity became their weakness once he reverse-engineered their strategy. It's the reverse, he exclaims. This is the answer. Yuma and Shino launch their synchronized counterattack. Shino is ready to draw blood, but Yuma is satisfied with just forcing them to make a mistake. For the first time, the hunters are on the defensive. Kajura-Leo twists midair with a bored smirk. How naive squared, she mutters, defying gravity once again to evade the lethal blades. She's not ready to give up her title as the predator just yet. She retaliates with Nagirufru, Hyo. Yuma and Shino are stunned by her sudden burst of midair acceleration. She's not just fast, She can pivot in empty space without ever touching the ground. She kicked the air. Yuma's eyes bulge in shock. Kajura Leo looks down on him with absolute disdain. Her gaze is cold and sharp as a shard of ice. Her idea is far beyond anything he can comprehend. A massive kick, Nagirafru-chou, slams into Yuma's shoulder. The impact is staggering, shattering his posture and sending him crashing backward. The speed of the ability users is beyond human limits. The building groans under the impact. Shino screams Yuma's name as he's buried under a cloud of dust and debris. These observers are far more powerful than Yuma ever imagined, leaving him broken and gasping for air. Battered and barely conscious, Yuma reflects on the term idea. Is this the pinnacle of power she was talking about? He's pushed to the brink, yet a single word keeps echoing in his mind as he stares into the darkness. In the observation room, Lily hears Yuma's pained groans through her monitors. The other prisoners and observers discuss the possibility of his death with a chilling detachment. Maybe he's already dead, one wonders. Mikage Hazuki tells the story of how Sendi Yuma, a supposedly weak man, completely manipulated a giant death row convict into walking straight to his own execution. He's a man who can kill without ever lifting a finger. Mikage's interest in Yuma is bordering on obsessive. He believed that a man who can kill with word alone won't be taken out so easily. To him, Yuma is the ultimate enigma, a piece on the board that refuses to be played. One of Mikage's subordinates asks why they can't just finish Yuma off. Mikage smiles mysteriously, explaining that the administration's cameras have blind spots that he can exploit. He's teaching his underlings the true meaning of control. The observers are frozen in shock as Mikage reveals the most dangerous secret about their target. Sendi Yuma doesn't play by anyone's rules but his own, and that makes him the most dangerous man in the town. The ultimate reveal, Yuma, is not wearing collar. The explosive device meant to execute any prisoner who disobeys is nowhere to be found on his neck. He is a truly free man in a town built for the dead. How is this even possible? The story shifts back to Yuma's high school days. He was a quiet, almost invisible student performing mundane tasks like handing out worksheets. Even back then, he was observant to a fault, noticing things no one else did. He remembers a classmate cutting her finger on a notebook, but when he asks her about it the next day, her reaction is one of pure terror. What's with him? A stalker. To them, his kindness was nothing more than a creepy obsession. The whispers of his classmates were a constant, stinging reminder of his isolation. Yuma was only trying to be observant, but to everyone else, his perfect memory was something gross and criminal. He was beginning to realize that his own mind was a trap from which there was no escape. In the middle of that crowded classroom, he stood alone, a boy who saw too much and was feared for the depth of his gaze. Every detail, every moment was a permanent scar on his memory, a forced destiny that would eventually lead him to the very edge of human capability. Shino screams Yuma's name as he struggles to get back up. Yuma is bleeding, his mind reeling as he remembers being told about Route B and the inescapable nature of his own brain. He's reaching his limit, but he refuses to stay down. Close-up of Yuma's intense, blood-streaked face. He wonders if this idea is truly his ability. Meanwhile, Shino asks if he's okay, and he barely manages to mutter that he can still move. The fight is far from over. Shino takes a stand, telling Yuma to leave this to her while he recovers. She charges forward, her eyes filled with determination. Across from them, Oridadu Kazumasa prepares his next move, noting their desperate struggle with a cold, veteran eye. Yuma watches in confusion as Oridadu suddenly changes targets to intercept Shino. The old man, who had been throwing his chain weight until now, suddenly pulls Shino close. The shift in tactics is sudden and lethal. A realization hits Yuma. He thinks about how idea transcends the limits of human thought. He shouts for Shino to stop, his eyes wide as he sees the trap unfolding. He knows something she doesn't. Yuma bellows a warning. Bladed weapons won't work on him. He tells her to let the chain go, his voice filled with a desperate urgency. Shino looks back, startled by his sudden outburst in the heat of battle. Shino's blade strikes Oridaду, but it doesn't cut. She stares in disbelief as her weapon fails to leave a mark on the old man's body. I can't cut him. The realization that her offense is useless is a terrifying blow. A massive, stylized impact occurs. The technique Balk Astro is mentioned as a final, crushing move. Shino realizes she's been lured into a trap, her eyes wide with shock as the sheer force of the counterattack hits home. The battlefield is a blur of motion. Oritoto's massive frame looms over them as Yuma and Shino are sent flying by the explosion. Yuma grunts in pain, his body taking another heavy hit as they struggle to find an opening. Yuma screams at Shino to pick up her chainsaw and get inside a building. He knows they need to change their environment to have any chance of survival. Shino, battered and bruised, shouts back her compliance as they retreat. The hunters pause. Kajura Leo apologizes to Oridaду for her impulsive behavior earlier. But Oridadu is more concerned with Yuma's eyes, those intense, knowing eyes that seem to see right through their tactics. He's starting to see the threat Yuma truly poses. The scene shifts back to the monitor room. A flashback shows a girl crying out for Leo. In the present, Mikage Hazuki looks at the screen with a somber expression, muttering that it's nothing as he watches the prisoners struggle. Lily, Amari Rika, reflects on her first meeting with Yuma. She claims she met him in town and used a lost coin trick to approach him. But she knows Yuma was just pretending not to remember her, a part of the facade he built to survive. They discuss Yuma's Route B. Mikage notes that Yuma's brain doesn't let go of memories, a biological error that defines his idea. Lily listens intently, her eyes reflecting the complicated feelings she still holds for her former lover. Mikage explains that Yuma has been living his life, suppressing his ability so as not to stand out. He watches Yuma on the monitor, intrigued by the power that the young man is finally being forced to unleash. It's a dangerous game of observation. Lily stares at Yuma's face on the screen, a sad smile playing on her lips. She wonders how long he'll cling to those useless feelings. In the present, Yuma and Shino find a temporary shelter in a dilapidated room, gasping for breath. Yuma looks at Shino with concern, asking how her body is. Shino, despite being covered in wounds and clearly exhausted, tries to act tough, flexing her muscles and claiming she's totally fine. She doesn't want to be a burden. Yuma isn't fooled. He knows that Shino's self-assessment isn't reliable because she has no sense of pain. He thinks back to the moment she was hit, realizing she's pushing herself to the absolute limit for his sake. It's no good, he thinks. They discuss their next move. Shino asks if dropping the chainsaw earlier was part of the plan. Yuma confirms it, thanking her for the god-tier response that successfully distracted their pursuers. Their teamwork is starting to solidify. Shino looks at Yuma with wide, curious eyes, asking what they can possibly do next against such monsters. Yuma, his face still covered in blood but his spirit unbroken, points a finger as he prepares to explain the final, desperate move. I'm betting everything on this final strike, Yuma declares. His gaze is piercing, his fist clenched in a determined grip. He knows they only have one shot at this, and there's absolutely no room for error. Shino looks at him, calling him insane for even suggesting such a plan. She's amazed by his memory and his tactical mind, even as she's terrified of the risks they're about to take. How do you even think of that? She wonders. A brief, somber moment of reflection. Shino looks at Yuma, admitting the instinctive fear she felt during the battle. She tells him that thanks to his unique talent and quick thinking, she's still alive. A heavy weight of gratitude hangs in the air. Shino pokes Yuma's back playfully, a small tease to break the heavy silence. She reminds him that he kicked her but to save her earlier, and for the first time, the crushing weight of the battle starts to lift. Surrounded by rubble, she lets out a small, weary smile. Thank you, Yuma. Her voice is sincere, her eyes meeting his with a newfound respect that catches him completely off guard. Yuma looks back, his expression softening as he realizes just how far they've come. But in this city of monsters, Moments of peace are as rare as they are dangerous. Yuma looks up, a look of genuine surprise on his bloodied face. He's staring at Shino, perhaps finally seeing her as more than just a temporary ally in this nightmare of a town. Wait, he wonders, his guard finally dropping. Twilight Town, the worst place on Earth, a concrete cage for those the world wants to forget. Behind its high walls, every resident is a walking death sentence, a collection of monsters with nothing left to lose but their lives. Survival here isn't just a goal, it's a war. Close up on Yuma's intense, battered face as he reflects on the sheer desperation of his struggle up to this point. But what truly shocks him is that Shino didn't back away or show fear, even after witnessing the full, terrifying extent of his idea. She's the first person to truly accept him. A moment of quiet in the eye of the storm. Yuma looks up, his breath finally evening out as he stands in the heart of this forsaken town. He's coming to terms with his identity and the brutal reality of the path he and Shino must walk together. Yuma's determined grin says everything. Even if we have to live with every ounce of our strength, it's fine. Let's go. The fire in his eyes is back, more dangerous than ever, as he fully embraces the monster he was meant to be in this city of ghosts. Back in the monitor room, Lily is frozen in disbelief, her hand trembling against her face. Behind her, Mike Chizuki lets out a soft, dark chuckle. He finally noticed, he muses, watching his experiment finally yield the results he's been waiting for. As Yuma and Shino walk deeper into the heart of the city, the true law of the land is made clear. In the shadows of Twilight Town, there is no right or wrong. There's only the justice of the one who survives. The hunt has only just begun. Yuma Chigami and Shino Usaka crouch low, their eyes fixed on the target. Yuma whispers the first phase of his daring plan. They will use the crossbow to aim at the jumper and disrupt their rhythm. Shino looks skeptical, but Yuma explains the technical trick. He's rigged a thread from her chainsaw to the crossbow's trigger. Once she revs the engine, the crossbow will fire remotely, catching the enemy in their blind spot. The perspective shifts to the crossbow's scope. The crosshairs are locked, and the tension is palpable as the bolt is ready to fly toward Ko Kajura, the bicolor-haired assassin standing in the distance. Arito-san, a massive old man with a long white beard and heavy chains, stands alongside Ko Kajura. He calmly notes Shino's approach, his eyes reflecting the cold experience of a veteran. Shino charges with a roar, swinging her heavy chainsaw at Arito-san. The giant old man doesn't flinch, dismissing her attack as a waste of time. He's seen countless youngsters try, and fail, to break his defense. You won't know until we try. Shino screams, putting every ounce of her strength into the strike. Sparks erupt as the chainsaw blade grinds against Arito-san's impenetrable wall of chains. Arito-san remains immovable, telling her she's only exhausting herself. But in a split second, he notices something unusual. Shino isn't just attacking. She's positioning herself for something else. The old man senses a trap and notices a thin thread trailing from Shino's movements. Meanwhile, Ko Kajura watches the chaos, realizing the girl's assault is nothing more than a noisy distraction. In the distance, Ko Kajura pins Yuma to the ground with a brutal kick. He mocks Yuma's despair squared, oblivious to the fact that he's standing right in the path of the crossbow. Yuma grins through the pain. The bait has been taken. Ko Kajura looms over Yuma, unaware of the crosshairs behind him. Yuma knows this is their only chance. Now, Shino, fire, he shouts in his mind. A brief flashback shows Shino's earlier hesitation. She was terrified of hitting Yuma by mistake, but Yuma had insisted. In this world, the only thing more dangerous than the enemy is your own doubt. Back in the present, Shino's eyes burn with fierce determination. She pulls the chainsaw's cord, activating the remote trigger. She won't let Yuma's sacrifice be in vain. The bolt screams through the air. Arito-san's eyes widen in surprise as the projectile narrowly misses him, heading straight for the back of Ko Kajura's head. Everything rests on this shot. Kokajura's reflexes are supernatural. He barely dodges the bolt, a predatory grin spreading across his face. He's genuinely impressed by the chainsaw trick and the blind spot strategy. Interesting, but Kokajura flips through the air with effortless grace, the bolt passing harmlessly beneath him. Yuma's heart sinks. As I thought, he's too fast for a simple trap. Kokajura uses his airwalking ability to escape the crossfire. Yuma realizes the enemy had to jump because he didn't have the time or space to brace himself on the ground. This reveals his true nature. Yuma's mind races to analyze the movement. He spots a critical flaw. Kokajura can only move horizontally in midair and lacks the power to lift himself higher. To change direction, he has to drop his posture downward. Yuma's cognitive guidance kicks in, simulating the entire battlefield. He knows exactly where Kokajura must land to face him. The escape routes are narrowing. The trap is resetting. Everything is going exactly as Yuma calculated. As Kokajura touched down, Yuma was already there, moving ahead of the simulation. Hunt and strike, he bellows. The trap snaps shut. Chains erupt from the ground, wrapping around Kokajura. For a fleeting moment, it looks like Yuma has finally won. But something feels off. Arito-san remains chillingly calm in the background. He mocks Yuma for being surprised that they ignored Shino. An elephant doesn't notice the bite of an ant, he says coldly. Kokajura, despite being bound, looks down at Yuma with a look of pure pity. He calls the failed trap regret squared. He isn't caught. He's just waiting. In an instant, the tables turn. Kokajura easily breaks free and pins Yuma down with a heavy boot. He cold-bloodedly explains that capturing Yuma is their only priority. The girl can be dealt with at any time. Pinned and bleeding, Yuma Chigami stares up at Kokajura. Instead of fear, a chilling, defiant smile creeps across his face. If you think you've won, then for you it's regret cubed. Kokajura and Arito-san look down at the broken boy in stunned silence, unsettled by a man who laughs in the face of defeat. But while Yuma is grounded, the battle is far from over, as Arito-san turns his heavy, mountain-like gaze toward the last remaining threat. Arito-san stares down Shino Usaka, his presence looming like a mountain. The air is heavy with the roar of her chainsaw, the only sound in the tense standoff. Shino's face is a mask of pure desperation as she declares this will be her final, all-out swing. Arito-san remains unimpressed, confident that her brute force is no match for his seasoned skill. In the background, Yuma Chigami watches with a sinking feeling, realizing that one wrong move will end everything. Yuma's mind works like a tactical fortress. He reflects on his use of cognitive guidance. By manipulating Arito-san's expectations and making him believe Shino was no threat, he managed to guide the giant into a predictable pattern. The core of his gamble relied entirely on Arito-san's arrogance. The battlefield is a grid of lethal tension. Shino and Arito-san face off in the center, while Yuma remains bound, watching for the exact moment the tide is supposed to turn. Every person on this field is playing a high-stakes game of life and death. Flashback to the preparation of their desperate plan. Yuma urged Shino to strike Arito-san with everything she had, using her raw power as the decisive blow. Shino was hesitant, terrified that the plan placed Yuma in far too much danger as the primary bait. Yuma had to admit his own limitations. He knew his physical strength wasn't enough to take down a monster like Arito-san. Shino listened, her heart heavy with the realization that their survival depended entirely on this one brutal gamble. I can see it. Yuma's eyes gleam with a tactical madness. He identifies the narrow window of opportunity, the one attackable spot, where Arito-san's defense finally has a crack. Arito-san looms over Shino, a massive obstacle that seems impossible to overcome. He believes he has already won the battle of wills, unaware of the tactical snare Yuma has laid out. Shino's thoughts drift to Soda. Every swing of her chainsaw is fueled by the need to get him back. and she is willing to break herself just to strike down the monsters standing in her way. The clash is violent and immediate. Arito-san lashes out with his heavy chains, but Shino is a blur of motion. She counters his speed with raw fury, screaming that he's too slow to catch her. "For my comrade!" Shino screams as she brings her chainsaw down with absolute fury. The roar of the engine drowns out the sounds of the dying city around them. Arito-san attempts a massive counterattack with his weighted chain, but Shino's momentum is unstoppable. She charges forward, a storm of steel and desperation, refusing to let him breathe. A sharp crack echoes through the air as something finally breaks. It snapped. Arito-san grunts in shock as Shino's chainsaw bites deep into his heavy chains, shattering his defense. Shino doesn't pause for a second, aiming a lethal strike directly at Arito-san's throat. This is the moment she has been fighting for, the moment of execution. "Stop, Shino!" Yuma's voice cuts through the bloodlust. He halts her mid-strike, explaining that killing Arito-san would be a strategic error. If they leave him alive, but broken, the Yin organization will be forced to retreat and treat him, effectively removing their strongest fighter from the battlefield. Kokajura watches the exchange with cold detachment. He confirms that Yin does have a doctor back at their hideout, acknowledging Yuma's tactical reasoning, but his gaze remains predatory. Arito-san is shaken, sweat pouring down his face as the reality of his near-death sinks in. Kokajura makes it clear, even if Arito were to die, it would give him no reason to back down or retreat. The tension between the two assassins is palpable. Kokajura, his bicolor hair fluttering in the wind, declares that Yin will never stop, regardless of who falls. Their mission is absolute. Yuma looks into Kokajura's cold, slit eyes and feels a wave of pure terror. He realizes there is no common ground with this person, no way to understand each other. They are fundamentally different beings. Suddenly, the standoff is shattered by a blur of motion. Kokajura is intercepted and pulled backward by an unexpected force, breaking his composure for the first time. A manic laugh rings out as a new player joins the fray. A crazed inmate from the Snatcher group has managed to hook Kokajura's foot with a wire, reveling in the successful ambush. "Found the timing!" he screams with insane glee. Yuma is stunned, the sudden shift in the battle's momentum leaving him breathless. For a second, he really thought his life was at its end. These hyenas have been waiting in the shadows for the strong to weaken each other. The newcomer, a scruffy scavenger, drags his prize across the pavement with surprising strength. The battlefield has just become a three-way struggle for survival as the Snatchers close in. Yuma watches in total disbelief, recognizing that even a lowly scavenger can possess an idea. The Snatcher's manic laughter rings out as he calls for his pack to join the feast, turning the tactical standoff into a chaotic feeding frenzy. Shadowy figures emerge from the surrounding ruins like ghosts, clutching makeshift weapons and sensing weakness. These bottom feeders circle the exhausted combatants, ready to pick the bones of the once mighty predators, unaware of the lethal boredom they are about to provoke. Kokajura kicks away a Snatcher's wire with a bored expression. He calls the scavengers annoying hyenas, having no patience for bottom feeders who wait for the strong to tire each other out. A Snatcher tries to spear him, but Ko dodges with cat-like grace. He stares down at the group, finding it almost amusing that they think they have a chance against a member of Yin. The scene shifts to a cold, high-tech monitoring room. Hazuki Mizuki's, the blindfolded leader of Yin, watches the chaos unfold. On his desk sits a simple onigiri bento, priced at 2 kilometers, and a bottle of water for 1 kilometer. In Twilight Town, every breath is a currency of survival. Hazuki Mizuki adjusts his hair, his presence alone commanding authority. He explains the brutal math of the prison. 2 meals a day cost 4 kilometers. That's the bare minimum required to keep a human being from withering away. He continues his dark philosophy. When weak men realize they can't survive alone, they group together like the Snatchers, deciding to kill and share 1 victim a day. In this hellscape, Being weak doesn't just mean you lose. It means you become food for the desperate. Back on the battlefield, the hyenas learn the true meaning of power. Kokajura unleashes a massive crescent slash that carved through the Snatcher group in a violent blur of steel. Ko stands tall amidst the carnage, mocking the Snatchers for their audacity. They thought they found a wounded Yin member to scavenge, but they only found their own executioner. He offers them a chilling choice. Tuck your tails and run, or die right here. Ko's eyes narrow, his face a mask of cold boredom. He calls this situation despair squared. He has no interest in these minor pests. His focus is entirely on the boy who managed to challenge him. Yuma Chigami and Shino Isaka can only watch in silence. Shino is still ready to swing her chainsaw at the injured Arito-san, but the overwhelming presence of Kokajura makes the air feel heavy. Every second is a struggle to stay conscious. Suddenly, Yuma's face contorts into a grotesque, sweaty mess. This is his signature pug face, the physical consequence of his brain overheating from the sheer volume of variables he's calculating with cognitive guidance. He has reached his absolute limit. Najaharu Hibana once warned about this. When Yuma's brain crashes, he loses all tactical coherence. Kokajura and Arito-san stare at him, completely baffled by the nonsensical expression on their opponent's face. They don't know whether to laugh or stay on guard. Yuma covers his face, looking physically ill. The leader of the Snatchers is furious, screaming at the boy. He can't understand why Yuma is acting this way when their lives are on the line. Kokajura looks at Yuma with a mixture of confusion and begrudging respect. He realizes that Yuma wasn't just fighting to win. He was trying to sell a favor by protecting his friends, even if it meant certain death for himself. Stupidity squared, Ko mutters, his cold eyes flashing. But for a fleeting moment, a memory of a girl named Linda flashes through his mind. Her human smile overlaps with Yuma's desperate struggle, touching a part of Ko he thought was long dead. A crackle comes from the radio. Hazuki Mizuki's voice breaks the silence, informing Ko that Arito-san has a broken foot and the capture of Yuma Chigami is no longer necessary. The mission has been aborted. Ko listens to the radio, his expression unreadable. Hazuki orders an immediate retreat. Despite his personal desire to finish the fight, Ko is a soldier first, and Yin doesn't tolerate disobedience. Ko stares at the radio, then back at Yuma. He finds himself wondering if even this sudden retreat was something the boy had somehow accounted for. The tactical depth Yuma displays is unlike anything he's encountered in Twilight Town. Yuma's shadowed face is a mask of exhaustion and intensity. He has survived the encounter with Yin, but he knows this is only a temporary reprieve. The predators will be back, and next time, they won't be as merciful. Kokajura sighs and scratches his cat-like ears. He asks Arito-san if he can walk and tells the Snatchers they are fools for thinking they could pick the bones of this battle. He has no more time to waste on them. In one explosive movement, Ko shatters the Snatchers' weapons and clears a path. "You'll die here," he says with chilling finality, his voice devoid of any empathy as he prepares to depart. Snatchers fly through the air like ragdolls as Ko flexes his true power. Yuma watches in stunned silence, realizing that Ko was holding back tremendously during their own duel. The gap in their abilities is a terrifying abyss. Kokajura turns his back on the battlefield. By then, Yuma Chigami, he says. He admits that he finally understands why Najaharu Hibana followed a boy who looks like a complete fool at first glance. There is something genuine in Yuma's madness. Yuma is left breathless, clutching his chest. He reflects on the word goodness, a concept that feels utterly foreign in a place built on the slaughter of the weak. Yet, it's that very goodness that Hibana saw in him. Kokajura and Arito-san walk into the distance as the sun sets on Twilight Town. Ko leaves with a final, cryptic thought. He wants to see how Hazuki Mizuki's version of goodness will collide with Yuma's. The battle for Chapter 6 ends, but the true struggle for the soul of the prison is just starting.